Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV Podcast 520. Just how special, Johnny. Not only is it a Wednesday night instead of our typical Tuesday, but it's also after the first day of the four PDGA Worlds. That's pretty exciting. So much better than us being on last night and possibly postulating about a bunch of random stuff. And I love that we got one round in, and now we can postulate and still be wrong on a bunch of random stuff.
I mean, had we been on last night, we would have spoiled today. I mean, we would have told everybody that Anthony Burrell and Isaac Robinson would have continued their streak from last year. We would have told everyone that Kristin Tattar was going to have a rough outing. It just, if we wait until today, we're not spoiling it for anybody, Terry.
Yes, and if there's anything we believe in, it's spoilers. So, nonetheless, a quick recap of, or we'll say layout of what's going to happen tonight. Jeff Spring is actually just wrapping up a meeting, I believe, with our PDGA executive director in Doug Bjerkes, or at least that's what they both told me. But seriously, they are wrapping up a meeting.
Don't let them fool you. They just didn't want to invite you.
That's a good meeting for me. But once they get all wrapped up, Jeff is actually going to be joining. He's coming over. We said, let's just do it in studio, well, meaning my hotel room. And Jeff's going to come over here. We're going to talk about the 2025 schedule. That was really big news last week. Obviously, we're heading into the competition of Worlds this week, so we'll talk about that too. But I'm sure plenty of you have questions, and there's conversation about the schedule. Because we saw some changes. And so as we're going along, as always, when we're going through things with Jeff, and if you have any other questions or things that we haven't covered, you're welcome to throw them in the chat. We'll see if we can work them in as well. But that's pretty much the plan tonight. So while we wait on Jeff to show up, let's start on the FPO side of the Worlds today and what we saw over there.
Yeah, it was the Holland Hanley show. Not going to lie. Holland came out of the gates just scorching. Honestly, we'll say this. Earlier in the day, Kat Murch came out and shot fairly well. She was shooting 7 under. She ended up 7 under par, about a 10-13 rated round right now, according to PDGA. I kind of assumed, all right, Kat had a really good back 9. At 7, that's a good number to start with. That's probably around where the leaders will be. Holland Hanley came out really slow, only getting one of her first 6. And then 2 eagles. She eagled hole 7, took a par, then she eagled hole 9, which immediately jumped her up the leaderboard, and then proceeded to have a phenomenal back 9, where she birdied 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then, no surprise, she ended up bogeying hole 18, and I only say that because it was a very common number if you scroll down the leaderboard. There were a lot of bogeys on that particular hole in both MPO and FPO, as we saw.
Yeah, I was just going to say, not to detract too far from FPO right away, but yeah, MPO, we ultimately only saw 2 birdies during that entire round from everything else that they were doing over on the MPO side. So hole 18, they're only going to play at one in the Worlds this year, and it may or may not be the last time it's ever actually deemed hole 18. But anyway, so normally I would start thinking about, well, what does that mean? How's that going to close out our Worlds and all of those things? Well, they're playing their last 2 rounds at Ivy, which is already going to be an interesting hole 18. But yes, just one more crack at this version of hole 18 over at Lynchburg, and that won't be for another 48 hours. So, Holland playing well. I don't think is anyone. Not Holland, not any of her fans, really, truly no one. It's not fair necessarily, and we're not harping on it, but the story of the day almost is overshadowed or becomes overshadows Holland's good score by just how much Kristin struggled.
Yeah, Kristin Tattar, who was on our featured card, ended up, she just looked off. Like nothing looked smooth about what she was doing. She ended up at 1 over par. She's in 21st place right now. She's 11 strokes behind the leader. And while we have seen in the FPO field huge swings, it's kind of honestly not even surprising at this point, the kind of swings that we see in this field. So there's no one that's writing Kristin off yet. But being 11 strokes back and 20 places behind, that's a tough hill to climb. That's not a place you want to put yourself, because if she were 10 strokes behind and there were only 5 people between them, I would think, okay, no big deal. Leader can come back to them. Everything can even out. That's a lot of people you're relying on to falter. But we do have 4 more rounds. This is only round 1. If Tattar can, I think Tattar literally has to shoot the hot round at least 2, maybe even 3 of these upcoming rounds in order to catch, if she wants to hit first place. I don't think podium's out of the question, but that it's going to be a difficult climb to beat Silva Saarinen, who's a pretty consistent player. Paige Pierce, who's tied for 5th. As we said, Kat Murch, who's in 2nd place, 3 strokes behind Holland Hanley. Hannah Blumroos, who was driving out of her, I don't say out of her mind, but phenomenally, and just couldn't putt. She missed 5, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them inside the circle. I think we lost Terry, but that's okay. Hannah is in 3rd place, missing 6 putts inside the circle. And Holland, as we said, she started out, she didn't miss many inside the circle. In fact, she didn't miss any of them inside the circle now that I'm looking at it, but she definitely did not have a great front 9. Oh, I'll say this, a great front 6. Her front 9 was pretty good. But to be fair, looking at all the other FPO scores, maybe she picks up 1 or 2 more birdies in that front 9, because there's a lot of opportunities for bogeys as well. So we have Paige Pierce and Evelina Salonen tied for 5th with Missy Gannon. They're all at 4 under par currently. Paige looked good. She stumbled at the end. She took a double bogey on 18, a single bogey on 16. Otherwise, she would have been right there in 2nd place. But it was nice seeing how smooth Paige was for the... it was nice seeing how smooth Paige felt, how comfortable she looked. So that is something that the field in general has to be scared of, because if Paige can shoot 992 to 1,000 rated golf every round, it's going to almost certainly put her in the top 3, because we all know Holland Hanley won't be able to maintain a 1034 pace. She'll probably fade back to the pack and sit around 1,000. If she's lucky. I think if she averages 1,000 from here on out, she wins. But if Paige Pierce can keep her 992 to 1,000, I think that puts her on the podium for sure. So moving on, Terry's back, by the way. Moving on, we're kind of talking, we're talking about the 9th place ties right now between Alexis Mondejondo and Caden Spurge. We didn't really see them on camera much that I recall, so I can't talk a lot about how they performed. And Maria Oliva in 11th place, starting out with 2 double bogeys, and then able to kind of clean up her day and end up at 2 under par. But overall, the other big thing I think is Owen Scoggins, who just had a bad day. She started out her front 11, she was 4 over par, and then managed to kind of clean up the back and get to even, luckily. And I know we've said this before, it's not like any of these courses don't favor Owen, but you would have, if between the two of you, you'd have had to pick today's course to favor her more than tomorrow's course over the players like Evelina and Holland and Paige Pierce, just based on the way that the course lays out. Now, as we've said, Owen gets it done on the green, and I'm sure she went out tonight and probably threw 300 or 400 putts to make sure she was just dialed in a little bit. A couple other names before we get back to Tattar. Deanne Carey in 17th. Kona in 21st. Good. She's starting to, I think, slowly come back into form, which is great. And then we get down to 21st, where you've got Kristin and Eliezra. Eliezra, one of our further throwers, not necessarily known for being a woods golfer, so you can understand where she struggled. But Terry, what did you see with Tattar overall? Like, what do you think was her issue?
Yeah, The par five, I think it's hole number 6, is where she ended up taking a bogey, and I feel like that was a snapshot of what turned out to be a lot of her round, which, or maybe is a precursor of sorts, in that it just didn't seem like anything was going right. I mean, you'd love to flower it up or find some other way to say it, but just felt like everything was out of sorts. And then at some point, she was definitely going to be second guessing. Is it mental? Is it physical? Is she, overthinking a shot or a particular release or whatever the case might be? And it's easy probably for a lot of those doubts to start creeping in. And then there's times where sometimes her putting will save her, and you will see her be off the mark, and then the putt makes up for it. That didn't really seem to be the case either. It's not fair because all players have to deal with it to some degree. However, I always think about the pressure. I think about when you are the number one player, and this is MPO or FPO, but when you're the number one player and there's just a 99% expectation from fans and from everyone else, seemingly, that you're the outright favorite, you're the front runner, you're the one that's just logically going to win. Now, obviously, there's other fans for other players, and no one should take a full-on defeatist mentality. But even when you talk, and the DGN and Disc Golf Pro Tour just made a post the other day where they're asking competitors, who you think is winning on the FPO side, and almost every one of those people, was picking Kristin. Of course, you had Chris Clements picking a significant other, and Hannah Wynn, and Double G picks Jessica, as you would expect. But for the most part, everyone barely even thinks about it. Paul went out on a limb, not a limb. Paul went against the grain and said he thinks it won't be necessarily Kristin. But for the most part, there's this huge expectation, and then there obviously is some form of an X on her back from all of her fellow competitors, and that they all want to. They don't love that story. They don't love that narrative. Missy Gannon has has said exactly that. I mean, I think she likes Kristin, but she still wants to beat her. And I feel like obviously all of the women have that mentality. You can't, just think she's unbeatable. You got to go out there and make her earn it, or you take a title away from her. So I don't know what to make of it, because I do think back to the European Open. I think back to one of the worst rounds we've ever seen from her at the European Open, and then how she turns around and battles back. We know she has that in her. We know there's plenty of golf, all of those things. There's just been a number of these times where we've seen kind of these weird meltdowns, for lack of a better term, and her rating proves it. She finds a way to bounce back. I mean, it's crazy that some of her, once in a while when she has a bad enough round by her or any standards, it's not even calculated on her rating. It's outside of a standard deviation in terms of her consistency. So,
well, if she keeps shooting these 957 rated rounds, they're not going to be out of the standard deviation very much longer.
And it's crazy to think that it was still 957. Like,
yeah,
957 is not terrible or embarrassing golf. It's certainly not her standard, but that's not like it's terrible golf. It's just you watched her throw, even on the was it the final, she just turned it over right into the OB, like immediately out of her hand, and just weird mistakes like that really had me wondering. And the last point I'll say to that is, it's not a secret that players who like courses, I feel like, almost will or talk themselves into playing really well there as well, if you happen to like a course. We've seen that from a lot of competitors throughout decades. Missy Gannon famously kind of talks about how much she enjoys playing Ledgestone at that particular event, and then has found success there. Kristin, like many players, really the New London course. She loves it. Talked about how she played it really well during the doubles, how she she wishes she was playing even more rounds there, how similar it is to European style golf, and all of these things, taking all those feels, all those vibes, bringing them into the opening round. You would think it would be a really solid round, and it just wasn't. And we're all human. Chalk it up to a bad day, and like let's be serious here. If she shot 10-10 golf for the next 4 rounds, exactly 0 people would be shocked.
Of course not. I don't know if that's going to be enough for her to win, but 10-10 golf for 4 straight rounds, it would be close. She'd definitely probably be up on the podium. And it's not
I
like
bet you if she went 10-10 for the next 4 rounds, I'd put $100 on it. That's enough to win.
Ooh.
If she shot 10-10.
10-10 rated golf. We'll have to figure out what that is. And next week we'll maybe check up on that. 10-10 golf for the final round, for the final 4 rounds from where she is now. We'll get that figured out. That's not that hard of math. But if you look, it's not like she lacked in birdies. She had 6 birdies out there, which is about average for what the field was shooting. Some of our top players were probably getting 8 or 9, but a lot of the field was kind of right there. It's just that she had so many bogeys. And 2. No, I'm sorry, just 1 double. I thought she had 2 for a second. Just 1 double. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bogeys and a double. That's just not the Kristin that we tend to know. Mm-hmm. She's usually, if she's off, she can usually find a way to save something, but there's a lot of spots on this course where if you hit early, you can't. You just cannot save a par. It's virtually impossible. You kind of have to just take your medicine, and that's what this course can do to you. And that's what it did to her.
Yeah. It, the other thing I'll quickly say about the course, obviously it got, great reviews, lots of people talking about it. And the consistent thing that you hear is W.R. Jackson vibes. There's fairways, and that the underbrush off of the fairway isn't terrible. Think about early days of like a Northwood Black, where they're like, oh, you throw in, you have to throw back out. Mm-hmm. Calvin Heimberg kind of famously said he hates how much they've cleaned up Northwood Black, because now it's easier to fight your way back out or progress down the fairway after throwing into the rough, and they're kind of cleaned it up. That has its pros and cons. Obviously, if you throw and then there's nothing to stop it, well, it could go for a long ways off course. However, that at least gives you an opportunity to fight back out to the fairway. So it's interesting to hear so many players talk about the vibes and the feel and the kind of the style of play of a W.R. Jackson and relating it to this. I can understand the similarities and how it can play. And let's be real, at the end of the day, the most pinpoint accurate players are navigating these fairways perfectly fine. And we saw, the near flawless play, or at least the bogey free play out of one Isaac Robinson to kind of back up that theory. So yeah, it was, I'll wrap up that final thought on New London and today's round by saying, at least on FPO, it's definitely is the preferred course, and we'll see who can get what kind of revenge or what they'll bring back to it in 48 hours. I think that in itself is like a sub-story that should be kind of fun to recognize.
Okay.
So, that's what we saw. I don't know if there were big. Did you see any other big surprises out of the FPO division?
No, not honestly.
Like
not
just
really.
Mind-blowing. Like, oh my God, that happened.
No, honestly, it was Tattar at the bottom or in the middle of the field where she's at right now.
And own struggles,
and owns struggles. I mean, you could argue about Paige Pierce just playing very, I don't say average golf because it was 992, but those are numbers that would have won Worlds, as we know, a few years ago. That she would be probably tied for a lead right now somewhere, but the field has caught up with her. I think it's good just to see the way Paige is throwing right now. That she seems confident. She had a little hiccup on the final hole. Not shocking. That's a difficult hole. A lot of people go OB. She happened to go OB twice on it. So it can definitely be difficult, but she's in contention, which is all you can ask after day one. She's nothing. It would not shock me to see her in like second place after tomorrow. Just
sure.
Holland, I don't, tomorrow's round, and Terry, you've probably seen this course more than I have. The little bit I know about it, it's very hilly, it's very long, and you could rack up some big numbers from OB, right?
Let me just quickly talk about that. It looks like we're going to have Jeff join us in a few minutes. Great. Let's quickly talk about Ivy Hill, representing Estonia, Kristi it shot the hot round. She shot a 2 over, which clears the rest of the field by 3. And coincidentally, she picked up 4 birdies in her first 5 holes. So she got off to an insanely hot start, took a whole bunch of pars, and then finished with a few bogey strokes. She had those 4 birdies, and then you could add up like the next 10 women in the field, and they probably have about 15 birdies combined. It was clearly difficult to collect birdies out there. And if you just scroll down the page,
yeah,
I mean, there's some women that had far more bogeys than even pars out there. There's some struggles, and that just proves how difficult. I guess if we clicked on the overall stats, I can't even imagine what it averaged.
Oh God, I don't even want to know.
Day.
So what you're saying is that like if a +2 from Kristy is 985, we can assume that the scores tomorrow will be relatively close as far as rating. We're looking at an even being a really good score. Anything better than even is going to be pretty hot. And if we see a 3 or 4 under par, that's probably going to be a phenomenal score.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's difficult because we have these A and B pools to exactly sort some of those statistics, but clearly averaged way over par overall on the day out there. And so tomorrow, that just proves that we're going to have even more volatility probably, and we'll see not only what the wind conditions can do, but then also who can keep it in bounds. Like that's going to be the number one storyline of tomorrow on both MPO and FPO. Well, so for now, we can pause.
On that course, Scott Stokely shot the hot round at 5 down. So
exactly on the MPO side. So for now, we'll pause Worlds recap conversation, which is a great break because then that means we'll go into the MPO side when we get back to the conversation. But I'm going to welcome, he's going to step on in, our Disc Golf Pro Tour CEO, Jeff Spring. We're going to get some, see if we can get everything lined up and good to go. He's going to grab a seat, and I'm going to give him some volume on there. So, Johnny, we'll have to do a quick volume check. But with that, Jeff Spring, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Johnny, how's the volume on that?
Oh, he sounds silky smooth. We should get him in the booth, Terry. You're fired.
Yes, he's been in the booth. He knows how to get it done. So, first of all, welcome, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Day 1 of Worlds is in the book. Obviously, just recapping FPO from the FPO side. I don't know where you were running around today, but any thoughts or analysis that you had from day 1 FPO?
A bit of surprise at the feature cards.
Yeah.
I think that is a tough day for Kristin, but I don't think anybody doubts that she has a shot. Even being where she is, we've seen her kind of have some tough opening rounds and then bounce back this year already. But I mean, Holland was very impressive. So and it's on the course you would expect her to maybe struggle a little bit more on out of the two. So, I think that the big storyline going into tomorrow may be like, does she extend that lead? And does she start getting a little distance from the field? That's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, and Holland, I think, to wrap that up, Holland, I think, perfectly said it in her post-round interview. She said, it's day 1. There's a whole, entire, section of golf. There's an entire tournament of golf to play. Still literally 72 holes to play. That's what most of our tournaments are, on the Elite Plus side. So she's not getting ahead of herself, nor should she, but you'd rather be in the lead than not. So,
right.
Very, very impressive stuff by her. All right. Well, we opened the show just saying the biggest news, arguably, of last week, already last week. Let's point that out. First of all, mid-August, we're seeing a 2025 Disc Golf Pro Tour schedule.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's start there with the timeline of you guys just getting it out. What kind of hurdles and obstacles? And did you have a deadline set that you wanted to make sure it was released by?
Yeah, our original deadline was, I think, actually end of July.
Okay.
And then we moved it back, and we kind of looked at the week before Worlds being a good option because there's no tournament that weekend, right? So it's really important for us as a company, actually, and it's been a goal since last year because a lot of partnership cycles start in September and October. We want to let our partnerships team get out there, especially with the non-endemics, right? I think the folks in the sport, they're okay with like, hearing from us on our normal schedule, but it helps everybody for financial planning. So that was a big part. Also for the LOCs, giving them more time to get going and planning. Like right now, like a lot of our cycles start 12 months out, but it's February, and
Sure.
some events don't know until end of September in the past. So it gives them a little bit more bandwidth. And then a little look to like the municipalities when we went to a sports ETA conference where there's a lot of cities and their organizations called destination marketing organizations, like Visit Salt Lake or Tallahassee or Austin Sports Commission, and they actually plan a little bit more in line with some of the timing on PDGA majors, which they're trying to get out in front of a little bit more too. So if you really want to make inroads with planning and getting grants or support from cities, they budget, even further ahead, and they want a longer timeline to support you. So like if we want to see growth in spectators, we feel like engaging the cities to get all their partners and all the marketing that comes along with that, a lot of in-kind support, we do need to get earlier. So I think that it will benefit our company in a lot of ways to get earlier. We hope to get earlier again, probably for the next couple of cycles, and just be able to plan in advance. What's been tough is saying, hey, we're going to decide on whether you're back on the tour or not before we even see your event.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so like, for instance, Cascade is on the schedule for next year, and we're going to be making a decision on the 2026 schedule likely before that event happens, for instance.
And that's such a good that's something I never even thought about. I can think about a lot of ways to poke holes and come at different angles, but that's something I never even thought about. Is it's the LOC has to be on board, and then what was their result? How did they do? And having that, we'll say, full faith and commitment almost to, hey, we're going to have you back.
Yeah.
And you don't know if it was even successfully pulled off in a given year. Now, clearly you're giving them their first chance, or they're getting on the tour because you believe in them in the first place.
Right.
But sometimes the proof's in the pudding. And so there's some good faith effort there. I'll just real quickly extrapolate on, I've never even thought about when your visitors bureaus and things of that nature on board, and like you said, they can help promote it. That can be as simple as them making sure it's in their brochures that go out to all the hotels, or they can start planning when they're putting things on billboards. Like there's so many of those things that I think all of us don't necessarily think about, that can come in kind or as part of getting that partnership locked in earlier. If something's going to be put on a bus or if something's going to be put on a billboard, like they're planning those things out sometimes a lot, in a lot greater distance than what we are. So I love that. Yeah.
And in their budget cycles too.
Yeah.
Some of them do have some monetary support, and also they have these lists of businesses, that are part of their Chamber of Commerce or their Visitors Bureau, or, and they're looking ahead too, and connecting with those folks, letting them get to know us and watch us and saying, okay, we want to get you on board. We want to get you guys some tickets and give away tickets and publicize the event in the city, or in the metro area or in the county, depending on where we're at. That stuff's important. And it's always here quicker than So.
Yeah. And one more thing I just thought of is, even when you're talking about bringing a huge event to an area, it doesn't have to be as big as Worlds or any given event. There might be a hotel or a bar or a restaurant that's contemplating their renovation, right? Do they want it done and make sure it's done before this big event comes to town? Or is that something they're going to put off because they can't get it done? Like there's just, construction in certain cities. Let's face it. If Emporia did some major construction during one of their big events, like that's going to disrupt a lot of things because of the city and how big it is. So there's just a lot of things that we don't necessarily, that if they're not in front of us, you're not thinking about. So I really love that. Starting back in January and in Florida, last year there was a little bit of back and forth, some conversation, maybe even a challenge as to when announcements were made. Just like you said, was that the plan with last year, starting in January or February, but then also being in Florida? Is that kind of the foreseeable future? Is that fluid? What's your thought there? Because we're starting at the Florida Open.
Yeah, generally we would like to reduce travel time, in terms of tour vehicles on the road for us and the touring pros. So doubling back, ideally we avoid that. There's a little parts of the tour here and there where maybe you're not perfectly efficient. There's the realities of event teams and planning with them. But, I think that we're trying to work from the Southeast to the Southwest and then up the West Coast over to the Rust Belt into the Northeast and then come back down generally. And then obviously you have to get up into the middle of the country there too. Next year we'll have Nashville and Kansas City early. You can also do that late depending on how things go. But it really also depends a little bit on bids. Our returning events have a lighter bid where they just have to indicate what their primary metrics are. Like, this is how much out of cash. These are our event dates. These are this is what we want to do. Here's the goals for the event. And sometimes we ask events to maybe resubmit a broader bid depending on results and maybe go out a marketing plan or try to get more spectators. But generally the new events put in full bids and we don't know what we'll see. For instance, I think, I don't know if you guys are going to ask me about this or not, but I'll just bring it up and pick the scab. But, we are actively cultivating more events on the West Coast and we're trying to find event teams or locations or the bandwidth within our own staff to put a lot of time and energy into developing a venue, or committing staff time and hours to developing an event. And it doesn't just happen like that. You need the resources in the community. So we're definitely here and anywhere that'll listen. If you're in a state that doesn't have a bid, whether it's the West Coast or somewhere else, reach out. There's a pretty robust bid package and you can figure out how to put that together. And, we've got a bidding team that can walk people through that. And, even if it's not ready yet, we can start now. And in a year or two, maybe we get there. But we are actively cultivating and working on a couple bids with some new locations in the Mountain West and beyond. So we hope to add more stops in 2026 and beyond, but it's just not like, okay, hey, we're going to do it. There's just a lot of things that need to happen, and there's a lot of risk doing it too. So
certainly, well, in a lot of places, as soon as there's any schedule released over the last 20 years, immediately the first thing is, why isn't there one here?
Right.
And it's their hometown or their backyard. And I reiterate every single year, it starts with a TD or a local organizing committee that wants to do it. And it's not just you and your two buddies that want to see the top pros.
That's right.
You need a whole committee. And then are you capable of doing it? And then are you flexible on when it's scheduled? Like that, those are high level, but yet all super important components. And that's just off the top of my head of a couple of them. And it's obviously, like you said, more robust. It is worth discussing what that process is like. With us being in Florida, a couple of things immediately jump off the page for me, and I'm sure others then asked. Let's start with, it's the Florida Open, not necessarily presented by chess.com, but even before that, we don't see an all-star weekend listed. Mm-hmm. Is that a possibility? Is that not going to happen? Is that tabled? What's kind of the game plan or not with an all-star weekend?
Yeah, we're planning on it.
Okay.
And we've got some generally final plans in place. But what we decided to do is we're planning with a little bit more time in between events. And if you look at the schedule, it's either every other week or more, especially in the European swing.
Yep.
Or like the events are very close together, so they're back to back. It gives us a little bit more bandwidth to maybe look at some exhibitions. And so we do plan to basically announce an exhibition schedule when we announce our qualifying series schedule.
Okay.
So the exhibition series and the qualifying series will not be points events for the Disc Golf Pro Tour World Point Standings, which drives to the playoffs and the Tour Championship. These will be like, we're kind of dabbling with some ideas. One is match play. We're looking at maybe putting together either a series or an in season tournament, or a couple ideas there.
Okay.
Doubles has been put out there as like an exhibition. Obviously, I
know Joel and Owen are in on it. They'd love to play some doubles if you do mixed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of talked about maybe teams or team-like events.
Sure.
Celebrity Pro-Am, All-Star Weekend. Those might end up going together.
Sure.
But we've done some celebrity Pro-Ams, which you've been a part of on the celebrity side.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
Right. But no, they do help because you do have a little bit more exposure to the followings of some NFL players in the past, and we've had Casey DeSmith and NHL goalie Dylan Cease no hitter this year.
Weeks ago,
exactly. And Ben Askren, Chef Zimmern, and they have great robust following. So when we're doing that and welcoming them in, they're talking about disc golf to their fans and followers. There's more folks that we know of that we just got to find the right date. And generally, they want to see the top pros and play with the top pros, so it makes sense to pair it with an all-star weekend. So there's some machinations going, but we anticipate that near the end of the season.
Okay, so not necessarily something before Florida, maybe or maybe not.
Yeah, the plan
basically I'm going to Asia. When do I need to be back? That's my question.
The plan is around its traditional time right now, but we do think that it would be nice to figure out a way to shift. Because this would be the 2024, results feeding that in. In 2025, our intent would be to put it, at the end of the season there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I'll head right into that Florida Open conversation. Obviously, chess.com, huge to have them on board. We had the, arguably or maybe inarguably the, one of the greatest chess players of all time on site in Magnus Carlsen. So very cool, even for a guy who only fringe follows chess. First of all, how was their partnership? And then second of all, is there a chance of them being back on board or still involved in some capacity?
Yeah, there is. And I know that the team there, Paul and the Olympus team, they're talking to him. I think that chess.com was pretty transparent last year that they weren't necessarily doing this as an ROI play.
Sure.
And we actually went on to announce a partnership with chess.com where they sponsored some of our stuff. We sponsored some of their, kind of an in-kind reciprocal trade, which has been good. We've seen a little bit of cross mingling, but at the same time, I think that their leadership team loves disc golf. They want to be involved. They're actually, I think, involved in another event this year that you'll see. And so we anticipate them to be around. And I've had continuing discussions with their team, and they're great. They're actually, kind of inspirational because they've done a lot with chess that they've got some ideas for us, and so we
crossover.
Yeah, exactly. We and it's good to learn from other industries and other business professionals, and people have done a lot in their team. Eric, their CEO, and Danny, I think was referred to as their chief chess officer.
Yeah, the CCO.
They're great. And they did the commercials and stuff. So,
I think a lot of people were excited. They may not have understood, like you said, that it wasn't an ROI. It may have been more of a fanboy, situation. But we'll take it where we can get it, and it's awesome.
And I think they'll be around and involved in the tour and probably that event in some way, shape, or form. But I think the chess.com, former chess.com team, Florida Open. It was announced as a Florida Open last year. I think they'll have some exciting announcements coming down the pipe.
Okay. And then that's what we're seeing. Then we move over to Texas, and I feel like a lot of feedback from Texas was there's a lot of good golf, but 4 weeks feels like almost too much there.
Yeah.
And this year, is that something you addressed?
Yeah.
Or how did that, what was that conversation like? Because we see, 2 events there now, right?
2 events, yeah. The Austin, the Open at Austin is slated for Elite Plus.
Okay.
And we're excited to announce that course schedule soon. And I won't give any spoilers quite yet, but then Waco is coming back. And last year it was great for logistics, and
sure.
But that can only weigh in so much. So we did feel like this is part of the overall strategy. Let's not exhaust our markets and our volunteer bases and the spectators, and being in Waco and then Austin back-to-back weeks, it asked a lot of the community. And I think we'll talk about a similar thing in other stops too as we kind of move.
Yeah, and I'll just jump right to it. I feel like is that kind of what you were also answering with the Portland Beaver State scenario of having two events in a relatively similar region or not that far from each other, less than an hour,
right? And
getting that pull, getting those volunteers for multiple weekends and all of that. Is that how that part of that conversation?
A little bit. If like Waco and Austin are also similarly close, and they can support. We've seen good spectator numbers and kind of like this different turnout. And in Portland, I don't think where it's set in stone that we wouldn't ever run both events. I think that there's a future. I know the BSF wants to return as an independent event in the future. And the Portland Open has grown to one of our bigger spectator events, mostly because the venue can really hold a lot of people, and it's right in Portland. So I think that there's a possible future where there are markets that can really carry two events. However, generally the tourist shift is to kind of come to one market once per year. But the Portland BSF is really just the vision of, what would the best pro worlds be, and that was kind of where the Super Milo, Riverbend Gold and Glendoveer East came into play because, I was running the Green Mountain Championship and 2 pro worlds there. Wooded Open, a little bit more spectator friendly, a little bit more traditional wooded track. Those two just seem destined to play well together. And conceptually, we combine early because there are 2 separate teams, Jesse Tomato and Stumptown. Yep. And Stumptown supports the Portland Open, but Brian Cole, our operations and logistics director, is the TD there, taking over from me. And so how do we work together, and like, how do we get it right before we, maybe if we got a bid, we're going to do the big one. So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Another one that jumps out at me, they've been running a very well-respected Q Series event the last 2 years, silver then Q, the Kansas City Wide Open, obviously just being around for 43 years. I was at the KC Wide Open in 1996 and 99, way back in another era. Kansas City, this mega hotbed of disc golf, in the middle, and all of the crew there putting in so much work and effort and really saying, hey guys, look at what we're doing. We see them graduate, so to speak, or get elevated. That conversation has to come up of Dynamic Disc Open being in Emporia, an hour and a half away. Again, KC, a great disc golf community as well. What was that conversation like, that it was one and not the other for next year? And is alternating a possibility in the next few years, or what's the thought there?
Yeah, I don't think anything's set in stone. I think that with some of our, beloved events that have been on tour a long time, I put Jonesboro there. It was more about, looking at next year in the schedule and trying to establish the weeks off our team for the players, but also looking at the markets and where they're at, and whether or not we could give certain events more planning time. Because I don't really look at it, we'll set it in stone, when we come around, for the 2026 planning, which we hope to do soon. But, ideally, both of those events are planning now for 2026 and gearing up and, kind of having like a celebrated return. I think that, I even think about that with the GMC. Like, it's a grind to do it every year. And some of these events are like, over decades of doing this almost, and it does come up quick, even though it's a year, and you assume that you're going to get after it. But, I think in those markets, like having the KC Wide Open there ready to really graduate, as you say, kind of make us think, hey, maybe this is the right time to, give them a little bit more time, reload, and go big for 26.
Now, when you have some of these conversations, obviously all that makes sense. My question would be, do some of the teams volunteer to step back, or has this become very cutthroat in that everybody wants on, and you are just now really handpicking these? How does that, some of those conversations, like,
Yeah.
I would ask, I heard a rumor, which was, well, DDO is also, Dynamic Just Open, is focused on revamping some stuff locally. So being off the tour they were really good with it. I don't know if that's true, or if they were genuinely heartbroken or not, or if that was part of a bigger plan. But how do some of these teams, what's that communication like? Because I'm sure it's not fun.
It's not easy. But I think, it's probably depending on who you are as part of the event team. I've heard, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like, that's fine to, maybe less thrilled outcomes, but
less cooperative.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it cutthroat. I mean, we value, the events that have been on tour historically. This isn't the first time events haven't returned in a year, but in this case, like with Peace Year, I mean, I went over to PCS, I think a year or two after you. Mm-hmm. You laid the groundwork, but
I've done that at most of our Pro Tour events. Not most, but quite a few.
But we got to hear a good report from Terry before we open the door. But no, and PCS was really on the fence about 2024, and it was really just, hey, we can commit to 2025 and bring you back.
Okay.
And that kind of helped them get over the edge and give them a little bit more time. I mean, they've put in a couple new holes over there at PCS. I think that they're gearing up, and I think also it depends on the event team a lot, and the bandwidth and everything like that. But for instance, Swedish Open, even in their bid this year, they said we're going to bid for 25, but we understand if there's towards 26, and so it seemed like that was almost welcomed and proposed
sure.
in some cases. So
okay.
Yeah.
When we're looking at some of the others, Music City's obviously been around. Cascade has been a silver event.
Mm-hmm.
Then Northwest Disc Golf Championship, Kona Piste is in there. Is that going to be a scenario where it's tough, or is that more geared toward just expecting more of a European turnout? Because either that or the Portland Open may suffer, or vice versa, or
Yeah,
that one there was an event this year that I know was at the in Denmark with the Copenhagen, where it was Open. Kind of like it was a little ahead of the rest of the big swing, so it was like
that one was a little different. It was a little bit early and on its own.
Okay.
At Copenhagen, here was a little bit more like this year's Swedish Open, which had a pretty strong field.
Yep.
But I think the DMC was after it this year.
Yeah.
So I think that's more of Kona Piste and LA Open. We expect strong fields at Kona Piste, Northwest Disc Golf Championship, LA, and Preserve. I really do believe that they'll split. The field will split.
Okay.
And you'll see a bunch of U.S. and Europeans go to Kona Piste and LA, and a bunch of U.S. and Europeans stay for Northwest and Preserve.
Sure.
I think that it's just going to kind of be depending on who has the time and to go over there. And those are two great events. I think a lot of people will be enticed.
Well, and I think that's almost a good problem to have. We have so many just damn good events that you don't want to miss this, but then in order to miss this, you got to miss that, and it's like sometimes that's really difficult.
Yeah, and what I'll say is that just think about this year's Swedish Open, great field, great results, and this year's DMC, great field, great results.
Sure.
And you couldn't even really tell that the field was split, but those fields were split.
Yeah.
Like I don't think any player played both of those events, but they were both well attended, well viewed. So I really look to that, and I mean we'll assess it. I mean we structured it that way with the thought that we've got 6 weeks in Europe and we can't make it 8 or 10 weeks, and really expect to have the U.S. field really be over there for that long at this point in the tour's history. And I think we did hear from a couple players saying, oh, well, why aren't those grouped in? And, I think that it would be very difficult. Like we already had to make difficult decisions about the events that we're going to be able to put on the tour this year. And, in summary on that topic, I would just say I think that in one of the events that we the Northwest Disc Golf Championship, this big event that we're a big part of with the Stumptown Disc Golf Club, is part of that. And I'm not afraid for that event, but I'm also not afraid for Conopy Air Alley.
Sure.
I think they're all going to have great fields.
Quick question on Preserve. Even though ownership has been transferred over to Charlie from Gotta Go, Gotta Throw, we'll still see the Preserve at the Preserve.
Yeah.
That hence the name.
That's right.
I worried, if that's the right word, or just postulated that with Cale moving his efforts over to the Hollows and it being near Blue Ribbon Pines, also two phenomenal courses, if Cale would want the event over there, and then maybe things would transition. But it looks like Preserve, still at the Preserve property that we've all know and love.
Right,
as well.
That's right. And, you know, we've talked to the team there, Cale, TJ Odengard is the TD, and we kind of just debriefed and kind of talked through the scenarios. Charlie is a property manager there, and at the end it was, hey, let's all get together. Cale's behind it. Odie, Charlie, I think it's going to be a great turnout there again.
Okay, U.S. Women's in Wisconsin, I'm very excited about. Johnny and I, of course, very familiar with the property and all the people. Des Moines, not to overlook it, but again, going to be a great event. Yeah. You don't have to say anything else. Obviously, the European swing consisting of PCS, you just mentioned Krokel, the number one course in the world, European Disc Golf Festival. Then coming in the week before Tampere and Nokia, the World Championships. There's a criticism out there, of course, that we're going to have majors back-to-back weekends. And for the women, I think, as they say, 3 majors within, so to speak, 45 days or 46 days or whatever the math comes. The back-to-back majors, anything that you want to publicly say on that? Because that's been one area of criticism. And I know you're not alone in that, because there's the PDGA, but talk about that.
Well, I mean, that has I think been announced for a while.
Yes,
but it's just republicized.
I think we saw the European Festival, the huge success it was again this year, now more publicly. And then we saw the addition of the course. So it's, in a good way, people are excited, but then they did the math and they're like, wait, that's going to be crazy. We have 2 majors back to back.
Yeah, there's a weekend in between.
Is there really?
Yeah, there is actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Yep, there is one weekend in between. And I'm lobbying, hopefully, for an expanded President's Cup on that weekend potentially, but who knows? We'll see.
Okay.
It could, I don't know what actually will happen with the President's Cup, but I just think it would be cool. Field events weekend, maybe something like that. But that all said, I think the other option is to have the major, maybe 5 or 6 weeks apart in Europe. And then the question is, if you're a pro that wants to play the majors, are you staying there for 7 weeks or are you making 2 trips to Europe?
Yeah.
To force pros that are, maybe, focused on majors to have 2 trips or 7 weeks is a lot to ask. Yeah. And so if you're going to play, let's just say you play Des Moines and then you're going to take a break and you can gear up for 3 weeks in Europe, that's a reasonable ask for the pros. So I would say that this is a pro focused decision versus a spectator maybe decision. However, I think it's more of like, being realistic about, travel. I know we saw Yuli like jet over to Copenhagen this year.
Sure.
Jet back.
Calvin,
he got some. There was some, and Nicholas Antala. I think played an OTB a week after playing in a European event. And that seemed crazy to me.
And it's funny because we're talking about all of this, and obviously there's a lot more pros here that are touring full time. All the Europeans right now are rolling their eyes saying, oh, boo-hoo, you got to go over here twice.
Exactly.
Because we're seeing the Kristins and the Evelinas. They're coming over here 2, 3, 4 different stints, throughout the year.
And maybe
it's all perspective.
The next time there's another double major, maybe there is in the future, there is a different approach. I think that this is the safest for sustainability, but I want to just emphasize that we did not make that decision. Of course, the PDGA makes the final call. I think that, I gave my 2 cents and I said it's either, 5 weeks apart,
a big break or,
or 1 week apart.
Sure.
And the final call was 1 week.
All right. Yeah. A lot of the season closes out as we'd expect. Ledgestone, Idlewild, which we know it's impossible to think of a tour without Idlewild, specifically because it's proven to be so dynamic. Pardon the pun. Like they continue to, eight different MPO champions in 8 years.
Yeah.
And so many first-time champions, and the excitement that it always provides.
Right.
Great Lakes Open, of course, and then Vermont in September. You're kind of an idiot not to be there and doing that. MVP on the East Coast, and then we close out with USDGC and Throw Pink, and then also the Tour Championship by Barbasol, which is cool. They've announced that they're on board for the rest of this year and then all of next year. I can keep yelling, put it on your face. So that makes me happy. We'll get right to a side story of the Worlds that kicking off today and yesterday was the fact that announced that Lynchburg or the Bedford course in Tech, a grant was passed and millions of dollars awarded to companies, and they're going to come in and kind of destroy a third of the course, or they have to level it and then make it ready for business, putting businesses on them. Immediately the question got asked then, well, when we're here for the Tour Championship, is that Ivy Hill? Is that playing New London still? Is there chance ground hasn't been broken, so to speak? What are your thoughts on that? What do you know about that already?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we awarded the Tour Championship to Lynchburg, our understanding is that, first of all, our course schedule is not published. We'll probably publish it in January or February next year.
Okay.
So, we're going to wait. But like our concept is, hey, this is potentially just at Ivy Hill.
Okay.
And that's a showcase course. We're excited about it. A lot of support. Tomorrow's free live coverage on YouTube is going to be presented by Ivy Hill because they've done a lot for the event. So, we're doing round 2 there just so we can feature Ivy Hill on the live free stream on YouTube, which is a little different. And I maybe not everybody saw.
I didn't know that. But the internet alerted me today of said strategy.
Well, we announce our how to watch and it's in there, but not we are like, people are going to find out when people don't read.
I only read mean comments. I can't read anything productive.
But that said, my understanding, albeit just like a superficial one, is that that New London is going to be, New London Tech is going to be, has a lot of room around it, and if the changes do end up going through, that the course won't be down too long. Take that with a grain of salt, because I think I've heard that from Nate, and I know that the designer is a little upset about it, and like I think maybe anybody who loves the course and sees it here, if those changes come to pass, that there'll be some disappointment, because it's a great I mean, it's probably a top 10 right away woods course in the world, if not course in the world. So if we can use it in its current layout, we will likely do that.
Sure.
If we can use it in a new layout, we'll consider that. But we are excited to come to Ivy Hill for the Tour Championship. And, that said, we're also excited to, kind of reload in Charlotte too.
Yeah. So a couple more follow-ups on that one. The mayor himself yesterday at the players meeting said there will be competitive golf in New London, moving forward. We're going to continue to have tournaments out there. And he did talk about, redesign, using more land out there. Obviously that's going to be a process that, who knows what that looks like, and when they even get started on leveling it. So I love hearing that from the mayor. I just want to start there. You have to wonder if this Worlds, and this is a woulda, coulda, shoulda, if this Worlds and the success of this Worlds happened 2 years ago, would that grant even had a chance to keep moving forward, right? If they would have seen what we're doing in the community for the weekend and for the longevity maybe of coming here often, maybe someone would have raised a little red flag quicker. Then again, money talks at the end of the day. So enough money is going to wipe out disc golf anyway.
Disc golf's growing.
Somebody may have,
I mean, I don't know. I'm just, kind of on the outside looking in a little bit. and we're also excited to be here. So we'll do what we can to advocate, but we understand maybe a process is going. I'm not going to turn down a 1.5 million to put into the tournament in the course if it stays.
Sure.
If we want to switch the grant, I'm just saying we could switch the grant. Maybe we could put in maybe like a little HQ.
There you go. So a little more cellular infrastructure, because we know everybody would love a little bit better bandwidth out there.
Cell tower, a bunch of parking for a big event. Pro shop.
Okay. I like your thinking.
You never know.
Yeah. So
we'll put it out there.
Clearly that being the one legitimate critique, that's not really anyone's fault, but bandwidth out there. And I know the Pro Tour and the PDGA and others, a lot of the stakeholders have worked really hard and invested some serious money. Maybe you want to share some details, but invested money to try and improve signal for this week. And even that has been a tall task. But anything you want to elaborate on what's been attempted and what we're doing?
Yeah, we're working with a contractor just to improve signal quality on site, and it's a technology that can pair a Wi-Fi handoff into the cellular infrastructure that we have, allowing us to activate some more hotspots and be able to broadcast some more holes that were a little tricky, a little concerning. And I don't know that it's perfect, but it definitely solved a lot of them and allowed us to bring a great broadcast.
We had, just to clarify, we had more with all this investment. There was, albeit not perfect by any means, but there was more golf shown today than what we maybe originally did to be able to be shown.
Yeah, that's right. There
were still struggles, but the improvements, you don't know what holes they were on necessarily, but there were still improved made to get what we got today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that type of technology that, we're seeing work in real time. Like we weren't able to solve when testing other courses in the past that had some Wi-Fi, signal strength on site, like fiber runs and routers, and not being able to have the Wi-Fi handoff to the cellular capability that we use to broadcast, was a challenge. But now, like that, we are using that successfully. So it's kind of what it does is make a future where if you're going to run fiber on your course, that perhaps can fuel a live broadcast. If you're going to run fiber, have routers, we can use this technology now. So that's a huge win. And yeah, you're right. It has done a lot for this year's broadcast at New London Tech.
Yeah, I did get an email today. Someone told me today via email. They went out to the discgolfguy.com, found the contact page, and then told me that the signal's not very good. And I said, thank you.
It was nice though, and I'll just chime in real quick. Looking at the field of people behind players, and not a single person with a cell phone. I was watching. People were actually watching the golf and not necessarily recording it. It was kind of heartwarming just to kind of pay attention to what's around you and just maybe step away from the electronics just a little bit. And I'm guilty as anybody
in the moment.
Yeah, I'm guilty of anybody as having my phone in my hand, 90% of the day, but
yeah, and just to follow on that, clearly that was met with some criticism and a little bit of challenge, a little pushback from the general public. Do you feel like, A, will we really need to have that be an issue, moving forward? And B, do you feel like they have a valid concern and that maybe it could have been announced earlier? I mean, I know we all know it's a big ask. We all live on our phones. Let's be real. That was a criticism that came about.
I mean, I think that there was a good amount of time, but you always probably want to know when you're buying tickets. Yeah, you never, unless when you open tickets, it's stated. So, certainly we can always do better on that.
Yeah.
I think that it is kind of like a social experiment.
Yeah.
Maybe people made some new friends out there talking to each other.
Hey man, you got that cellular? Hey man,
no, yeah, but no, I mean the crowd was great today. There's a lot of roars. It didn't feel like a Wednesday by any sort. So maybe it contributed to it. I know that there are some venues, whether it's concert, or comedy, or Masters that does this, and I've known some folks go to the Masters that said it's like a amazing experience because people are like looking up and looking around and saying hi. And, but, we did, yeah, I think it was necessary, and folks are to bring their phones out for 3 of the 5 days. Sure. And at IV, I'm sure we'll see a return to heads down, on their devices. But we'll see. No, I think that most people, whether they have their phone or not, like love being outside and watching disc golf. So.
Yeah, and I'm not dismissing them all. I understand there were some of those challenges that people. I think it was a little bit about the timing and just how much it does or doesn't help. It certainly does. Less people pulling on those signals.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about hundreds or possibly thousands of people. It's not perfect. Let's just put it that way. And I think we'll only look to improve. And sometimes we're just challenged that much more. This is one of those scenarios. Is it fair to say this might be the most extreme signal challenge that we've had, but still had a broadcast at?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe not unfair to say.
I mean, years ago, I feel like we absolutely, technology, Johnny can attest, of course, we weren't live at Beaver State Fling for many years because the technology wasn't quite there yet. And
the
now
CBRS unit, we've invested in, basically like a private, cellular network, if you want to put it that way. It's not exactly that, but is helping us here on site. Yeah. And then the additional tech on top of that, is it's great. I mean, it shows that, as we continue to find solutions, we're working with AWS on some beta testing next year. It looks like, as long as that keeps moving forward, to bring in some more, satellite technology potentially. I think it's just, we're kind of on the cutting edge. I mean, we've had conversations, whether it's with Verizon, or the NFL reps that try to handle some of their signal challenges, PGA. Everybody has some of these challenges, and obviously there's bigger pocketbooks for some of those names. But from what we've, talked to in terms of some of the some cellular companies that are working on this, we're like, just pushing along on the cutting edge of it. Obviously we don't have as robust signal at some of our sites, but we're a test case, and whether it's LiveView, AWS, or some of these technology companies we work with, they're investing in us and learning new things, and we're kind of on the bleeding edge of it. So I think it just shows that it's just going to keep getting better. We're just going to keep being able to go new places.
If you just got a satellite truck out there, I'd fix it all. That's my favorite line that we've been hearing for all 10 years of broadcasting.
Yeah, you probably longer than me.
Yeah, I won't get into my too bitter a voice. So in terms of schedule, you're wrapping up, Ivy Hill / being here in Virginia next year. Do you feel like the more maybe bigger picture item is, you mentioned Charlotte. I ran into a gentleman from Charlotte at the airport the other night in coming here, and he wasn't coming here. He was going back to Charlotte, and he's so disappointed we're not in Charlotte for the championship next year. And I said, you never know. I'm guessing, is that kind of a bid process? Is that also just like submitting, and do you want to see that kind of rotate in a general region every year, or what's the plan?
Well, no, I mean, I think the Tour Championship will move, and I don't think it's coming here and necessarily sticking here. I think that this location in Lynchburg has an opportunity to be on the tour for several years. I think that the Tour Championship, we had 3 great years at Hornets Nest. This is going to be the 3rd year at Matt Keats Memorial in Nevin. And, they've been great, but I do think that after 3 years in a location, it's good to, freshen it up. And also, same thing we're talking about. It's a heavy lift for Charlotte spectators, volunteers, organizing team, because a lot of folks put a lot into the championship and the USDGC the week exactly. Before, then... So, but what I'll say this is that when we announce our exhibition schedule, I believe, you'll see Charlotte on there for an exciting event. Okay. And I also believe, we're kind of talking Charlotte spring 26. Okay. And, I mean, talking like the another round guys, sure. They were kind of talking last couple of years, like, hey, we really want a full field and, maybe 2 courses. And, if I'm in Charlotte, like, I think that would be cool to have a full, like, elite or elite plus, DGPT or DGPT there. and really just have the full tour come through, because it is a limited field for the championship. So I think that I see it, we're reloading and going to come back bigger and better than ever in Charlotte, and hopefully in a time where everybody's fresh, ready, and roaring to go.
Okay. So that's the schedule. And then a tangent of said schedule that I joked about earlier is scheduling for media teams, broadcast teams, support networks, other people on staff, and all that other stuff. What does that look like? Because myself selfishly and others are already thinking ahead to, where a commentary team might be, or where can other media fit in to a schedule, whether they're local and they want to come out and be part in any capacity. But and then there's that kind of piggybacks on other recent news of some cutbacks and layoffs within the network. So when am I working next year? Am I still working? Do you need to fire me on the show like Dodge?
No. We want you back.
What will I be at?
We want you back. I don't know where you'll be exactly,
all right,
but we are diving in right
We're
after
committing
Worlds.
to me working 20 events.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For
okay.
sure.
You heard it here. But there's sometimes lesser events though too. And so then people at home wondering, and I do mean this very globally, people at home wondering, where teams are going to be in, because we've seen kind of traditional roles in teams of, these guys are covering this event, these people are at staple at those events. How does that all work into the overall scheduling?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a similar fashion, the media schedule, whether it's like outside media teams or folks that are contractors with the Disc Golf Network, is going to be earlier than ever. So, I think just right after Worlds ends, and Mahmood, is already kind of, I think got the wheels spinning on that one, and we're gonna dive right in. So I anticipate it being a lot different. That said, I mean, I do think that there's going to be more media opportunities with the exhibition schedule when that comes out, exactly. and then of course the Q series is going to be again returning in a similar fashion where we're not necessarily going to be involved in that media, but I mean I think you've covered some Q series and they did pretty well. So I personally involved with the Cascade Challenge, and even though I was working at Masters Worlds, we still had a crew covering the Beehive Classic over there in Utah, and Mary Sunshine House. I'm going to be covering that one. That one's
as well.
That the development of that venue sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean it. And
that's National over there.
Yeah, Seneca, South Carolina, and Phil Delone, our assistant tour director, has been working on that with the ownership group there, and so I think that we're excited to see that Q series, and it'll be shortly after that we're working on 2026. So you never know, but I think that just the earlier schedule gives us more time for those things to fall into place earlier and get people lined up.
Yeah, and then I guess is that kind of maybe you touched on it earlier in the sense that if an event is gearing themselves up, they may be disappointed they're not selected for a year, but then that also gives them time to fill any holes or patch any gaps or whatever to prep for the next year. And Oconee, I know, for instance, I didn't see them necessarily in the Elite Series schedule, obviously, for next year, but they're definitely building. And they've been building the course and the tournament with Pro Tour hopes in mind all along.
That's right.
And that, I think, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And we have a couple other venues in our development pipeline like that. And I think what everybody needs to start understanding are two things. Number one, we're trying to get further out ahead. And that's not a bad thing. If you're on the schedule in 2027, that's great. You have that, like we want that longer term build up and focus and results and delivery at that top level, because we've kind of grown quickly to this new level of DGPT from the pandemic era on, and we're good. I think we're trying to make sure that level stays where it is. But the next phase of growth will have to kind of come from a different collaboration with different resources. Like I said, the cities, the municipalities, the counties, the states, even, as well as, us finding ways to distribute our media more broadly as well. Sure. We've been distributing consistently with CBS Sports, but we've got some other irons in the fire as well. And we at the European Disc Golf Festival distributed our stream to two other broadcasters, including Telia, which is a pretty big regional network there in Scandinavia, the Baltic area. And there's more opportunities like that. So not only does that get it out to more people, but a lot of times you can generate revenue from media right sharing and licensing. So
yeah, and I love what we have, but those guys in Estonia, that the office slash just the entire broadcast booth was, yeah, that was top notch. I mean, they had an oscillating camera moving around the whole time, and just everything they had set up. It was pretty cool to see, to know there's an entire broadcast that was, like you said, just going to that region of the world that was also running, and they were doing their own thing while we were also on the network and working with PDGA or Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe and everyone else. Like there's some pretty cool stuff in the works, which is why I got so excited being there for that all 3 of those weeks. I saw so many cool things at each of those pieces of property. Being in Finland and Krokle and of course Estonia.
And some of that stuff is actually better opportunities currently in Europe, actually. And it just seems like there is more alignment around professional development of the sport, and kind of uptake of that by governments and broadcasters. It's just kind of like fitting in and going. And, it's great to work with the EDGF and their team and learn from them and see what outside experience they can bring in. And it's a good way to help, level everything up.
Yeah. Johnny, I without even knowing it, any question I had written down, we've already covered. So is there anything else that's jumped out for you?
Oh, let me tell you, we're going to get to the hard-hitting stuff now. No.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Part of the being able to announce all of the events this early leads to a few other things. One, we're going to give you a chance to plug the 10-year stuff, but there's a new season pass for 2025. Which is going to help out spectators that maybe want to visit next year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited about this. And there's only 500, I think, available. Only like 100 gold and 200 silver, and then a couple hundred bronze. But these passes are only for the folks that want to go to multiple events. Okay. Maybe go to, PCS and Krokle, or go to, a couple of the majors or a couple of DGPT Europe, or go out for Cascade and PCS. Or if you're local and you're like, hey, I want to travel for one, or I want to go to another one, this is going to be the most affordable way to do it. Okay. And all of them deliver GA access to every event of the year. So you basically can go to any event with any of the passes. But if you go to the Silver Pass, you can go to almost all the events as a VIP. I think it's 4 events as a VIP. And if you get the Gold Pass, you get all the events as a VIP plus multiple Gold Passes. And, it depends on what you want for your experience. The Gold Passes were kind of launched at Worlds last year and at Smugs, and we priced each one at 800 and 1200 silver and gold. And just, because we put a lot into it, a lot of experience, a lot of hands-on, meet the pros, tour the course, get to play while you're there, get a special, exclusive, and pretty valuable merchandise pack. And
a special dinner too.
There was there was a meet and greet, there was a soiree, a dinner. You could come to the World's opening ceremony. So it's kind of like this ultimate fan package. We sold out of those. We sold 40 of each of those. And so this year, these are now discounted down. And kind of packaged for the super fans, the folks that love to go to tournaments. Okay. We've got I think like almost 5,000 people that follow us on Eventbrite, and really we're like, well, we'll kind of make this for the 10% of those folks that really love it, and so they're already starting to go. So if you're interested in any of those passes, it's on DGPT.com, and you can check it out, and you can browse everything that's included. I think the Bronze Pass is $299, and we expect that to be the most popular, where you get multiple VIPs, but plus GA for the whole year. But then you get a special seasons pass, a merchandise pack. The first folks to get it get 10-year special commemorative box. There's a whole bunch of goodies. And so it's basically like all of them are like triple the value, but they're packaged, kind of as a way to celebrate our 10th season, which is crazy to say that we're, at our 10th season next year. But like it's also aligned with other sports too. When they now you can buy some tickets, and so if you want to package them and get a season's pass, it's going to be the lowest per ticket cost now. But in October and November, I think it's November 15th, early bird VIP will go on sale. It won't be as discounted as much, but you can buy individual events then.
Okay.
And last thing I'd say is the model is really kind of like the Epic Pass or the Icon Pass in ski resorts. Like you buy your home mountain, you buy your home event, but if you plan on going to one other, it'll make it worth it. And of course, maybe there's some people that go to all of them, and then it will be really worth it because you'll save thousands of dollars probably. But check it out. We're excited about it. It's also a great way to support the tour going into the 10th season. So thanks for giving me a chance to run that down, Johnny.
Yeah. I was gonna say I can't even afford the Flash Pass over at Great America, but this sounds like a good deal and certainly worth it.
Just to clarify, just because they are on the tour, would the GA passes go with the majors as well? Does that include the PDGA majors or no?
No, there is one PDGA major inclusion, and that's if you get the gold pass, you can pick VIP at the major of your choice. At the major of your choice.
I was just thinking, how great would it be
integration
to have the bronze go over for the majors, go over to Europe, make it a package, like a fun big package.
We're working on that. It's kind of like a pilot product this year because we're just launching it, and so I think you just gave me an idea for next year. But the integration with the PDGA has started with that one VIP, pick your VIP experience. So if you get a gold pass, not only do you get 2 gold events, but you get unlimited VIP, including 1 pro major of your choice.
Work with some travel company to put together an awesome Worlds package. I think that'd be pretty fun.
Talk to Maya and Dinko over at in Croatia.
Okay,
they professionally bring disc golfers over. They've been on the Silver Series.
I want to shout out. I think Nomad Disc Golf Tours, which is just launching, and David Martin has worked with us in the past.
Yeah,
and
Nate Sexton, right?
Yep, Nate, and so we're doing some planning with those guys. So if you want to check out Nomad, you might even just see a travel package for Europe pop up in the future, or for Portland or something. We'll see.
And off season, of course, everybody should be going to Samui. They should be coming to Southeast Asia.
Do they pay you directly?
Yes, that comes directly. Quick side note to that: I did say something to Kristin and Silver yesterday, and talking to them. Obviously, the congratulations on their wedding. We've talked about that, but I said, "Hey, when you coming over?" And he said, "Actually, we've been talking about it, and we have to get over there sometime." I said, "Well, Albert Toms said if it's not 2025." It'll for sure be 2026. And I think Silver said he's confused. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But either way, it sounds like we're going to get some more, accomplished Estonians to join us over in Samui. So there's the plug for that early. People do ask on a serious note. People say, hey, can we get over there? And I've even said, obviously, with the resources that are in a place like, Samui, we're on 15, 20 acres. We're not putting a world championship caliber course there, but things like some exhibitions and or some other fun tie-in with the tour to have meet and greets, to have some players maybe in a concerted effort and say, hey, what if these 5 players went over there? And obviously they're picking up steam in New Zealand and having the whole Down Under tour. Yep. I think there's a lot of fun collaborations that can happen, whether it's pro tour centric or the local committee or whatever. It's a good way, I think, for some of our players to blend some fun and off-season relaxation with maybe low-key disc golf interaction. And I think that's something that needs to continue to be explored, along with lessons and clinics.
To my very next question. We've looked at the Disc Golf Pro Tour now in the U.S. and Europe. Are you looking at other places? Are we looking at other parts of the country yet? Or other parts of the world, yet? Yeah, that's what I meant. Other parts of the world yet? Are we looking at maybe a Japan Open style DGPT event? Are we looking for maybe an Australian Open?
More in Australia returning,
The short answer is yes. I mean, we are in planning talks with a couple international events, including some folks in New Zealand. I think that where we've kind of pushed that to the exhibition type scheduling, if anything's going to be announced around those events. But we'd like to continue to develop the international series kind of from Europe and onwards. And I think we do have a good format right now. When you look at Europe this year, there was 5 events that you could get points on, but you could only count your top 3.
Sure.
And that was a way to allow us to, kind of protect against, strength of field issues.
Sure.
Because you could have somebody just say, hey, these are the latest strengths of field. I'm just going to try to cherry pick all of them. But let's just say we had 10 international events. We could protect that downside by saying 5, including let's say there's 5 in Europe, and then there's, 2 in New Zealand, 1 in Australia, 1 in Japan, and 1 in Colombia. That those 10 events, you can count 5 maximum in the international series. So I think that system is primed to expand in the future. We are looking at what can we do for next year still, and there's still some discussions going on with some teams that have put bids in. But that announcement of anything expanded international would align with the Q series and the X series timing in terms of announcements, Johnny. So, but no, I think that it's going that direction. We just got to make sure we're able to support it. Because international travel can be a little pricey, and if we do dive into something, we want to be able to broadcast live, whether it's an exhibition event or a tour event. So working through some of that is kind of a main consideration there.
Yeah, and I continue to think about it. Obviously, all has to start with somewhere, and I think about the Macbeth Foundation, for instance, putting in baskets and then immediately seeing some growth to people saying, hey, it started here, and now can we, how quickly can we expand to get to the next level, start bringing in some professionals, and then even thinking about exhibition events like you're saying. And it's I think about that. I'm going to Mexico the week here after Worlds, and I feel like that's all part of this just graduation, right? It starts obviously with Paul and the foundation, and then with a couple of really dedicated locals to then expand to having a medium-sized event and just continuing to grow it. And next thing you know, we could be talking about a pro tour event in Mexico in 3 or 5 years or less. Yeah,
and I mean, I think if you looked at UDISC growth report last year, South America had the fastest growing rates because a couple courses went in down there. So yeah, I mean, I think it does start there at ground zero, and maybe we get an exhibition there and then see if we can keep going. But you got to start somewhere. Yeah.
One quick thing is, immediately people saw right now a few less events on the schedule, but I think we've already kind of countered that conversation because they're worried about the value for their DGN membership and their subscription. But I think we've already now arrived at there might be less, Elite Series events listed right now than this year. However, probably more on the back end to make up for it with exhibitions and other things that will still get added to the schedule. So my point is, is the value of your subscription going to be equal or greater next year? Is kind of what they're saying.
I actually I don't know if there is many fewer events. If we actually did the math, but because I think once we get the Kona Peach Day kicking in, there's an event every weekend for a long period of time.
Okay.
But then, in the home stretch, I think that when you see the schedule we put out, that's compulsory. And we've tried to argue that it's not, but the pros see it as compulsory in a lot of ways because they're like, oh, I can't skip it because that's the week I could have.
Sure.
So some of this discussion, actually, I talked to Seth Munsey and part of the discussion around Lynchburg returning, was originally going to be a playoff event because both the GMC and MVP are open to being a DGPT Plus event, which would actually open up maybe less disdain from New England regional pros for one of the events. But because we do draw the hard line on the tour standings, it would open up qualifiers and exemptions and allow a little bit of regional play. So I would say I would expect that in the future to see one of our events, GMC or MVP, Steve Dodge's event, to cycle out of the playoffs and allow a little bit less of this stringent cut.
Sure, more of a regional representation as well.
Right. But when we looked at it, we reviewed the schedule, for a while we had a version that was, I think it was Pro Worlds and then Turku and then Ledgestone, Idlewild, D-Glow, all back to back. Then a week off, GMC MVP, week off, Lynchburg, USDGC Tour Championship again in Charlotte. And so that was 2 weeks off in that
Like a
entire
9-week
stretch
stretch.
from Worlds
Yeah.
to the finish. I mean, and talking to Seth and some of the players, it doesn't seem reasonable, for like players. So even just moving Lynchburg into the Tour Championship spot and after opened up like just the ability to have the breathing, the breathers that we have there. So, that's I think it's like 1 or 2 less. But to your point, we do plan on putting a couple exhibitions on there.
Okay.
We're talking to our media team, our ops team, making sure it's sustainable for those folks too.
Yeah.
But I think that the value is only going to continue to increase, and it's going to be bigger and better.
And that may follow up the question by our regular Smashy Tim. Any planned improvements or refinements to the network next year? Anything major? I mean, this year was big with going to AWS and making a couple other significant upgrades and then changing over the whole platform and all that. But anything else that's really you've got your eyes on for?
I heard
year?
the Fire app
I
was
don't think
improved. Someone was so excited that the Fire TV app now like supports like rewinding or something as of like a day or two ago. I laughed and said, all three of you are so excited.
Well,
thanks,
I mean,
Obama.
I know maybe I'm getting out of my skis here, but I know that Apple TV app is getting a big refresh and update soon.
Okay.
But the great part about the new relationship with Insys and AWS is that we have control over our own developmental destiny. So we do have a priority list, and we are working on a bunch of projects. One thing that I don't know when this one will happen, but I know that I'd like to get a linear stream available to be curated and managed and produced. So, basically, if you turn it on the Disc Golf Network, maybe it's classics or old tournaments, but you could just turn it on like a channel and it's going. Not that that's going to be a huge upside for your Disc Golf Network user, but it allows us to distribute it to different fast channels like Samsung TV or
Roku.
Pluto, Roku TV, Pluto.
Okay.
There's a couple other ones that are.
Are we on Philo TV? Because I feel like that's fitting. Because I know there's a Philo TV out there.
Not yet, but like we're moving forward. With that's an example of a couple other pieces of development that are underway. But we will kind of announce what the new features and upgrades will be for the 2025 season and the off season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I guess that brings me. I was say that brings me to another question about the future of the tour in general. You're saying that we're kind of every other week we've got exhibitions. Seth Muncie obviously worried about the players and the wear and tear. Is this the right? Do you feel, as the CEO, do you feel this is the right amount of events, or do you think we should have more events and let the players pick and choose? Like, what do you see as the future, the long-term future of the Pro Tour? Not necessarily next year, obviously. 5, 6, 7 years. Would you like to see an event every weekend, and then, or do you think having every other weekend? Are we going to a PGA model, or are we going to our own model?
Well, first, I did not say we were going to do exhibitions every other week.
No.
Yeah, we'll clarify.
No, but I'm sorry. Yes, not every week.
Yeah. Well, and we got to find the right weeks that work for the team and everything. No, I mean, I think that we have seen. I've shifted my perspective over the last year. I mean, I think we were driving at the concept that we should do an event every single weekend, which I'm not ruling out for the future. I think one of the things we want to develop are meaningful and fun and like events that people really want to watch in the off season, hence exhibition development. I mean, there could be Manufacturers Cup, there could be a doubles championship, there could be match play championships. I think the PGA Tour does parent-child, which is actually pretty fun to watch. There's a lot of options there. So I think it's more of like, kind of offering content year round. Live content year round is something that we're looking at doing. But, in terms of the compulsory events, which I would say are point series events, DGPT, DGPT Plus, majors, I think that we're kind of at a spot that will swim around for a while in terms of the events that we do. because, we want to, we 2 years ago, we had all the silver events that we ended up doing all 3 days of broadcasting for. I think we did 42 events or something like that. Some 2 at once, because we had the European events on the same weekend as, I think it was PDGA Euro Tour events on the same weekend as some of our events. Viewership didn't really support that at the time. Maybe it will in the future. We're open to that. But we're kind of reading the industry in the market at the moment, and really just reading what our team can do sustainably. So with our team kind of being where it's at now in terms of size, capacity, bandwidth, and sustainability, this does kind of feel about right. I think there'll be some changes, but kind of leaning in, like exhibitions are like, think about if we were going to do some regional match play events, for instance, and there was maybe 4 or 8 players from each division, our staff can pretty much handle that. We don't need a ton of volunteers. We need a LOC that can prep the course. But you maybe don't even have as big of a lift on the media side. Players aren't all going to be, playing that weekend. So you can kind of pick and choose for longevity of their arms. I mean, and there are, an increase in injuries, and Seth Munsey talks to that a lot of times. And it's kind of like, we have to start thinking about players on a pitch count. And a lot of players are starting to think about their bodies that way of, like how many, constant repetition, constant practice might not be the best thing for longevity and performance, and I've started to hear that in players' minds and stuff. Of course, when you're young, maybe that's different than, when you're coming down the stretch of your career. But, I think we've grown a lot in professionalism. It was when we were there, I mean, and you guys know from Steve's original vision, it was just, how do we even create a tour that has more than 30 full-time pros? And now the tour card really is a thing that you have to vie for. You have to, and there's going to be some names that are surprising that, don't get their tour card going into next year. And so I think that in terms of, being able to support a full tour of players, even though there are some sponsorship challenges out there for sure, we've achieved a lot of those goals, and we don't want to burn anybody out. So sustainability is kind of the word on our lips at the moment.
Yeah, let's not burn anybody out. Come on over to the course where there's 3 par 5s and 2 1,200-foot holes.
I didn't design this course.
I'm just kidding.
And then have them walk like 300 miles worth of hills over at Ivy Hill for the next couple of days.
Jesus, you take those 2 1,200-foot holes, and that's longer than some of the Worlds courses we played.
Yeah, back in the 90s. Well, with that, you want to stick around for a little bit to talk about MPO? You got to go. Well, let me, before I do that, I'll officially ask: is there anything I didn't ask that from a scheduling, DGP, DGPT, or DGN perspective, anything I didn't touch on that maybe you want to squelch any rumors or feedback you've seen since the announcement? Is there anything that I didn't?
Or tell us about the 10-year merch. Is there anything cool that you have your eyes on?
Yeah, I mean, the 10-year box, there's a special 10-year supporter box, and there are like the crystal lunas that are in there. Haven't been run since Paul Macbeth's signature stamp on the 6 World Championship edition. So I guess that those are, I've been told that those are very sought after inclusions, and you can only get those in the boxes. And yeah, I would say, check those out because it's a really good value. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Shout out Ty, our retail director, for putting those together and give me a nice talking point.
Okay. Well, so with that, do you want to talk a little bit? Should we quickly recap MPO?
Yeah.
You're officially off the clock now.
Yeah, I'm off the clock.
So do we have to hit up a triple mash over there? Yeah, why don't you? You're within Fridge's reach.
Okay, all right. I don't know what we're doing here, but it's
and there's a bottle or two.
Okay.
Maybe grab one of those fancy cups right next to you. Grab a couple of those. And I don't know if you've been treated to one of these, but
I haven't. No.
Go ahead and grab another cup because we'll officially toast ourselves here into the MPO recap. We were covering FPO when you walked in, and day one in the books at the Worlds.
MPO.
Let's start here though. What's your role? Well, you're here at Worlds, not technically being a pro tour stop, what's kind of officially or unofficially your role this week?
Yeah, I'm here to my primary role is to provide support in our DGN operation.
Okay.
But I'm also here to help with operational support, crowd control. I was on Chase Card with Bill Newman today.
Yep. Okay.
Just giving him a hand. Rebecca Duffy is the director of competition, and if she needs anything from me, here to support her and her team as well. And the LOC here is Ledgestone, and they have, I think, 4 different events that they're running with us this year.
Yeah.
So they got it pretty dialed. But at a lot of majors that are kind of rotational bids, where they're helping as much as we can. Operationally, our operations team is taking a generally a well-deserved week off because there wasn't that many operational needs, because they've got it covered with a great LOC and PDJ support. But we're trying to do a lot on the DGN side, so I'm here to give Sam Gaddis a couple back rubs and maybe run some charges around, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
All right, first let's cheers. Cheers. We've got ourselves
what is
some this is Dragon's Milk, and this is a barrel reserve version that they do, triple mash. Okay. Randomly ran into the cellar, beer cellar here after today's round. Steve Brinster may have been visiting for a moment, and then a handful of golfers were all in there that I didn't know that we met and talked with. And
awesome.
I'm excited these guys are in stock, because this went very quickly when introduced this year.
Johnny, you have one?
Oh my gosh,
I do not.
I could not handle this.
I would not be able to handle that. I'm not a beer guy, so and I'm all out of
not
my...
0.7.
Is that beer? Is the question.
That's a great question.
It's a
I don't know.
special type of beer.
It's a
I'm out of my brandy old fashioned that I have here at the house.
It's actually
normally,
good.
So, all right, let's talk about MPO real quick, Terry. Anthony Barella and Isaac Robinson leading the field at 11 under. Both of them came out pretty hot. Anthony Barella, funny enough, 1 birdie par, 2 birdies par, 3 birdies par, 4 birdies par, and then he went birdie, bogey, par to finish out. So he shot an 11 under, and a nice little pattern going there that I always love to see.
Yeah, who are you, Stat Mando all of a sudden?
No, I stole that from somebody else, so I saw that somewhere else.
Figured as much.
Well, And then Isaac Robinson coming out hot, shooting 4 under in the first 4 holes, missing 2 by getting pars, then 3, and then 3, and then 4, and then he was maybe the only bogey-free round out there.
That's what I said on the broadcast without checking it.
Me too. Okay, good, because I just said that without checking it too, so that's great. But as far as I can tell, there's no one else. So those are your leaders right now at 11 under. Luke Taylor, young kid, 18 years old, just really on the up and coming. We've mentioned his name a few times. He's at 9 under. Had that opportunity at the almost there was 1 or 2 birdies. No, there was no birdies on it. 18. Oh yeah, there was. I'm sorry, there was a birdie on 18. Corey Ellis got 1.
And Ty Love.
And Ty Love got 1. Yeah, I had to scroll down.
Those were the only 2. Yeah, Luke Taylor had a putt for 1.
He did. He had a putt for 1 after almost going out of bounds. Joey Buckets tied for 3rd as well at 9 down. And then Bradley Williams in 5th, just dominating the back 9. Had a pretty, I would say, under par, under average front 9, and then just dominating. My question for Jeff is one of our winners in the top 5 right now. Is our Worlds winner in the top 5? We have 4 more rounds to go. I'm going to go on a limb there.
Huh.
You think our winner's there?
That's a great question. Man, I would almost put those odds at 50-50. If I had to, before the tournament, my money was on Rick.
Okay,
I just kind of seen that progression, and I don't think he's out of it by any way, shape, or form. And he's sitting right next to Gannon, so I think that they kind of represent, for me, 2 of the people in that other 50%.
Okay.
When I'm looking at other names outside of the top 5, the ones that stand out to me because of Ivy Hill are Adam Hammis and Simon Lizotte. Simon has struggled in majors, but he also has put it together on big stages on tour recently. So, and Adam, has a couple big wins, both at like De La and at Portland Open, which is a very big course. It's like 12,000 feet, kind of stuff like similar to maybe the vibe of Ivy Hill, where there's like, it's a golf course, but not your traditional golf course. There's a lot of elevation. So I'm watching Adam tomorrow and wondering if he's going to put himself in the conversation. Of course, Paul, you can't count out Paul. I would say Chris too, but I'm going to watch it and see what he does at Ivy tomorrow as well. So that's kind of my outside take, but yeah, I mean, Anthony and Isaac were in my top 4 coming in. I think that they're the other 50%. And so if I was going to pick, I would say, probably the winner is in the top 4 right now.
All right. The other prediction I want you to make, where is the crowd bigger, on the lead card or the Macbeth Wysocki Burr Marweed card tomorrow? Who's got the bigger crowd following them, for crying out loud? For the majority of the round, probably the Macbeth Wysocki Burr card.
Yeah.
For the majority of the round. It's got to be. I mean, this is kind of Macbeth's home away from home type of town, too. So
yeah, they have the 224 round is when they're going to be going off or starting the round.
Yeah.
And you just called it. I mean, that's going to be a card that a lot of people, I mean, they just all have such big fan bases in their own right. And obviously any of them could pop off with a course record, and it should be really exciting.
I haven't seen
what they're going to do,
but I can already in my mind read Mahmoud's email about how there's going to be, he's like, we're going to put 2 cameras on that card and follow them around, because that's, whatever. To me, looking at this, obviously those guys are at 5 down. You get into the 4 down territory. You got returning champ, but kind of a local in James Conrad, but a world champ. Ben Callaway, Calvin Heimberg, Emerson Keith. Like, the next course feels like it could be a Calvin Heimberg special. Emerson Keith, who always does well at Worlds. Ezra Robinson, who has been a little, I wouldn't say up and down, but he just hasn't been able to put together a full tournament to get that win, but right on the cusp. Connor Rock.
Yeah, he's got back-to-back runner-ups, right?
Yeah,
he's got
events he's played. Back-to-back seconds. I feel like if you're not at 4 down right now, you're hurting. I think 4 down's that spot where it's like anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like Eagle McMahon could come out tomorrow and shoot a 1090 rated round and get himself right back into the conversation, but it's going to be difficult. And if you're not with that level of talent between you and the top place, it's going to be difficult.
I remember last year at Worlds, Eagle just kept trying to dig himself out, and he ran out of time. So he's I think you're right in that. If you're at 3 under or below, you are already probably starting to run out of time because you just can't count on somebody like Barella or Isaac giving it back. I mean, when I saw Isaac threatening at Idlewild, I was just like, because I mean, I just was waiting for him to fall apart. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I was just waiting for him to show a gap at Worlds last year.
Yeah.
At GM's at Smugs.
Yeah.
And it was just unflappable. And he just, he has that zone where, nothing is going to stop him. We've seen it a couple times. You just kind of wonder, there's no bogeys on there. I kind of wonder if has he just hit his stride, because he was missing cuts earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh geez, World's coming, and you start seeing him up on the lead card.
Well, and I think today, just one of those points of brilliance is where he throws an errant or not so great tee shot on 14 and then goes ahead and makes the deep circle 2 putt, and it's like, okay, that's right. He, like a Rick, you can just never count them out. If he doesn't make the greatest tee shot, he'll definitely make the recovery, or he's going to still find the bottom of the basket on a long range putt where you're just like, oh, man, I thought I had a chance to get a stroke on you, and he just doesn't give it to you.
Yeah.
So
and big shout out to Simon. I'd say big shout out to Simon, who at one point I had in my, again, on one of the chats, I said, cool, now's the time that the control room cuts showing Simon as much as they can, because he was 1 over after 6 holes. And he was, and Paul was 2 over, I think, after 6 holes. And Simon just comes roaring back on that back 9, and birdie after birdie after birdie after birdie. And suddenly you look and you're like, how the hell is he 4 down? Like, when did that happen? But amazing comeback. Amazing comeback.
I'll follow that up with a prominent celebrity that has been at some of our events. Text me today and said, why aren't we watching those guys? Text me in the middle of the round and said, where'd they go? What's going on? And I said, they're falling off the pace. We're focusing on these hot rounds in the feature card or in the feature cards, and feature cards are just that. We want to feature the best play. And the next thing you know, they kind of, like you just said, Johnny, brought themselves back into that conversation, but it fell off. I mean, Simon was even through 8 holes. There's no way you were like, oh yeah, he'll finish tied for 6 for the day. Nobody would have guessed that. So the big takeaway for me is also course-wise, and again, they're only playing it one more time. When you look at the course, I feel like, especially on the women's side, but also on the men's, back 9 definitely scoring a little more generously than the front 9. Just as a generic comment, you look at Bradley Williams, yeah, he's maybe the extreme end, but just in general, I feel like you see a little bit more blue on the back than on the front. Hole 12 is just one of those gimmies. 7 on the front is kind of a gimme, but just in general, it feels like the back plays slightly easier than the front. But
those par 3s are, I think, looked at most people as I really want to, if not must get. Even like 14 and 16, I think.
Yeah. 15.
Oh, sorry, not 16, but definitely 14 and 12.
Yeah, and then 15 is just a relatively soft par 4 as well, that plenty of people took advantage on. And then so let's quickly talk or shift over to Ivy Hill. Obviously, that's where they're playing tomorrow. We saw that Stokely, 54-year-old Scott Stokely, had the best round out there today, unofficially rated 1049. He got the first 3 and then got 3 out of the last 4, and pretty much par, the 9 in between or so, or 10 or 12 in between. What the heck does that say? Scott Stokely, 54 years old, world distance record holder for many years, and touring, teaching every single week of the year, shoots the hot round in the B pool at 5 under. What does that tell you about what we should expect to see from the A pool tomorrow?
Well, I actually don't know. I think it means that Scott has a really good chance of being in the A pool come Friday.
Yeah.
I'd love to say that I have a sense of what happened out there, but just looking at his scorecard with so many pars, I think Scott is also like a veteran golfer and is not, and like, I think it's about keeping it in bounds.
Yeah.
So if you can get the birdies, my theory looking at this card is that he, kind of just didn't take the chances if he was out of position. Because I was talking to players that are like, if you can keep it under 5 OBs there, you're kind of doing good. But so possibly he's combining, his distance prowess with good course management, which I think is like exactly what we need at a course like that, like a Fox Run. Like, it's not necessarily just about distance; it's about making.
Yeah, and I look at his rating as opposed to right now it says he's tied for 13th, but that's score wise. You can't really compare the two courses on score, but you can kind of look at the round rating and see that he shot a 1049, which would put him in 6th place. Arguably you could say he's a top 10 right now at Worlds at 54 years old, which still doesn't give me any hope, but it's got to give someone hope.
And to further what you just said, Jeff, 2 OBs, one of which he was able to save par on hole 12, a par 3, and then the only bogey he had was on hole 4 today, and that was with an OB penalty. So just 2 OBs on the day, And we ran into Chris Clemens in a practice round, who said, by the way, coincidentally, like Scott being a big righty forehand player, Chris said, I really love hole 1 and I really love hole 18. Well, those are two of Scott's birdies as well, being a big forehand thrower, and Chris being lefty. But Chris said, man, if you can keep it to like 2 or 3 OBs, I know you heard 5, but that seems pretty like a lofty goal. Keep it down to just 2 or 3 or 5 OBs.
Yeah, it was under 5. Keep it under 5. And
so Stokely with just 2 on the day. We'll even looking at the looks like Matthew doesn't have it broken down by hole. Tristan Tanner, who had the second best round of the day at 4 under. He's had
king of the B pool.
OBs.
Literally, every year he gets put in that B pool, and every year he's like the very top of it.
Well, in 2022, he was leading the tournament from the B pool after round 1 at DDO in Emporia.
Yeah, I'm just looking down at most of your top players. No surprise. I mean, this is easy math, but a lot of them keeping
European
it to 3 or 4 OBs or less. Wyatt Mahoney, who's celebrating a birthday here in the next couple of days, going to be, I think, just 16. Finishes with a 2 under on the day. So
what's the number to get into the to get into the A pool? I guess it's
so presumably, well,
half the field. I guess.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is it about 72 players? Wow, that is a good question. What we're going to see for the cut?
I think it's 50-50. So I think if you're 72 plus, you get it into the A pool.
Okay.
I think the cut is at 40. So it's going to be a little steeper into the finals on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, if Scott.
Nope. I think we lost Terry and Jeff there for a second.
What does he need to?
You're back. You froze up for a
Sorry.
second.
I was just saying if we're talking about, just the cut, or I'm sorry, the shuffle is really what it would be.
Yeah.
If Scott shot a 5 down, what does he need to do tomorrow? What's the worst possible score someone could have to still get into the A pool?
I think the shuffle is going to be at about 2 under. If I were to take a random kind of just a feel of how this course went, you figure a 2 under is in 50th place. And then you look at the B pool, which probably won't quite shoot as well as the A pool, clearly. So it might be 1 to 2 under is going to put you in the A pool after the shuffle. That's my guess. So if Scott can keep it around par or even 1 or 2 over, I think he's got a good place, a good chance. I wouldn't be surprised if you see the top 7 or 8 players from the B pool shuffle up.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, somewhere around there. So that leaves Joey Tamale in the mix.
It certainly does.
And then you got Zachariah Johnson and Thomas Heitnen and Dylan Horst, Northeast shout out. So maybe you get see some folks kind of move on up.
Yeah, and I guess too, I just talked about the New London Tech course and where the scoring happens here. 1, 2, and 3 seems like there's a lot of scoring just in general. Everyone seemingly took advantage of hole number 2 today. But 1, 2, and 3 seem to be a bunch of the scoring. And then 15 jumps out as one of the easier ones, and then maybe 7 and 8. Hole 7, it looks like it's playing as one of the easier holes. So we'll see. The scoring in the B or the D pool, I think, of the women, it was tough. Par was tough to come by. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So that also, has to make you wonder what we're going to see tomorrow from our FPO competitors. When you look at this pool and what they did out at Ivy, there's a lot of bogeys out there, and I'm clearly not, ripping on anyone. Just it's telling you how tough that course is playing.
Yeah, my sense from talking to folks is that it is playing tougher for FPO than it is for MPO.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the length is a little bit longer, in terms of effective distance of average distance of an FPO off the tee, FPO player off the tee versus an MPO off the tee. I think, you even see it in the scores there. 2 over. I wonder what the top scores in each respective A and C pools will be.
Mm-hmm.
I heard some people wondering if the A pool and MPO would get to 10 down.
Okay.
And looking at that, I think that we'll see some 10 downs.
Okay. Yeah.
But like in FPO, I'm sure we'll see some under par, but I just wonder how many players will be under par.
Yeah. And I the one thing at that course, from my preview of going through it, is I just feel like you can go OB off the tee and then during the approach and then even during a putt. Like you can go OB so many times on every single hole out there. In a USDGC sense, I was thinking, because at USDGC, you can go OB literally off of all 18 drives, and then whether it's the putt or an approach, you can also always still go out of bounds.
That wears on you.
And Ivy, that's exactly how I feel like Ivy plays.
Yeah, and it does wear on you. And you see that players, start, you need to swing freely, to win, like, and to just even perform well. You can't be trying to, like aim it into a pocket, and because that's when you saw it off, and then you overreact and you start grip locking it. And that's kind of, pros aren't immune to that when the pressure of the World Championships grinds on you. So like with every shot having that potential, that's where I think that, you could see some swings. And go back to your question, Johnny, do you think the top four, what do you think? Do you think the top 4 MPO players, do you think we have the winner in there? I mean, I think there's just so much volatility, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll have a better idea after tomorrow, but thinking of how the course is, if there's one weakness of Anthony Barella, it's the OB. And I know he's been better this year about it, but in the past, his distance has gotten him in trouble. So I'm curious to know if that's going to be the scenario for tomorrow, because I could see the same thing with Holland. I mean, look at your two tops of both your fields right now. Holland and AB are 2 of your longest throwers in each division. Is that going to hurt them tomorrow on Ivy when you're trying to push for that extra 50 feet or 30 feet or whatever you're pushing for? Or are they going to be able to pull back? Like, is AB going to pull out the yellow Luna and just chip his way around that course to get through it?
That's so right on, Johnny, because I think, like, looking at Scott, like we were talking about before, a lot, it seems like those pars did him well, and like, is AB willing to just say, I'm out of position, or I'm not going to push it, I'm going to give myself a circle 2 putt, which we know he can make, or am I going to try to, bullseye everything? It really depending on his decision making, his course management, and it is a course like that, and that's where it's like, thinking back, I mean, now I'm kind of talking myself into Eagle making a big jump up because of he did last year at Fox Run, and AB was there, and who else was there? Matty O was there.
Yeah.
And it's not dissimilar.
Yeah, and what I'll say is there's a few spots on the course, and I think this was talked about at the press conference, but there's a few places on the course where only big arms have access. And I forget, it's an early hole where there's some players that are just like, I have to throw to here, and then I have to throw to here, and then I have to pitch up, and I'm playing for par.
Yeah,
I heard a lot of players talk about that, and then they say, well, AB could get into position if he really goes after it. Now, will it pay off or not? Will he do that? But there are a handful of holes where players said yesterday, I talked to Silas Schultz, I talked to Mr. Tattar, Silver Lot. I talked to just a handful of MPO players yesterday that flat out said, yeah, I have to play for par on these 3 to 5 holes. And that's going to be interesting, because what I said, I joked with Kristin, I said, I worry what happens then is you say that now, that's your game plan, and then all of a sudden you let a few strokes go, and then you're like, well, what if I do go for this?
Yeah.
Here's where I got to make one up. And they change up your game plan, and then that goes awry. Like, I can see so many people just piling on strokes, like hole after hole out there, because when you get frustrated out there, I think it can go downhill, figuratively and literally, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the people who was telling me, hey, I only have access to 15 birdies, was a certain past multiple time world champion.
Yeah.
Saying,
okay.
There's 3 holes I cannot birdie, or I'm not going for.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to hear that.
That's exactly what I mean. And then the final point I'll make, especially because it is so early still, fresh legs and sleep and all of that stuff, youth maybe, even over experience in some ways is going to play a factor. That Ivy Hill course is no joke. Just so many players are like, man, it was really great being on a cart these last few days practicing. They don't have carts. They're gone. Actual golf carts.
Yep.
They're gone. And these hills are serious. I mean, we keep bringing up, being out at the toboggan. This is far more excruciating than the toboggan.
Yeah. That's what I heard from the camera ops. Are you glad you're in the booth?
Yeah. I'm glad. Me and my stomach are great that we're in the booth this week.
Make sure to give Brian Earhart a little extra warning before you call on him, because I don't want to hear the huffing and puffing. Give him a second to catch his breath. But Terry, what are you expecting to see from Luke Taylor then tomorrow? The young kid who, in theory, has the legs under him, but also has really never been in a spotlight like this. I mean, this is This is the World Championships on the lead card. No, he's never been in a spot like this.
No, I mean, he was on the lead card at Preserve late in the tournament, and the Preserve is not the world's, shine, of course, but he literally won last weekend at an A tier, and he knows how to win. He's got a good head, and I feel like he's working himself. Is he an established 10-year vet on the tour? Of course not, but this will be a great test for him tomorrow to see what he can do at the World Championships. Doss says it all the time, like, no matter what, he's going to learn something, about himself, his game. And, early on in the Worlds is not a bad place for that to happen. And we'll see if he pushes through.
I think he's going to be the most
I think he's going to have a solid round.
I think he's going to be the most interesting story tomorrow. Like, we already know AB and Isaac's story. Like, that's great. Joey Buckets has been all over coverage this year. Luke is the, what's he going to do in the spotlight? What's he going to do on this course where there's a ton of OB, being so young? We all know young can look at AB when he was young. Young can be dumb.
Yeah.
Or it can be really aggressive and be good.
Yeah, I think Luke, I mean, he's rated, 1032. He's won more than a third of the events he's played in his career, just meaning he knows how to win. It's been at various levels. What we're not going to see is a 12-over meltdown from him. That's what I'm saying.
Mark the tape now, folks. Mark the tape.
Mark the tape again. Terry's hot takes. I just don't think we're going to see something of that nature whatsoever. Is he going to shoot course record? Probably not. Maybe not. I shouldn't say probably. Maybe not. But I don't think you're going to see this, epic meltdown of some guy that doesn't, forgot how to throw a frisbee.
No, I
out there
definitely
tomorrow.
don't expect that.
So, pretty exciting. Where did he ultimately finish at the Preserve? He finished in 5th at the Preserve, and he was, like I said, he was on a filmed card, and we sat and watched him live. So, and coming off a win just last weekend, and then obviously we know that Joey Buckets is riding every form of momentum you could possibly be riding after, just coming off of a LWS win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we hadn't said much about him being on the lead card, but I'm very interested to see what he does tomorrow, because he has been up there, like you said, Johnny, all year. And watching him, there's some stoicism about him that reminds me of Calvin a little bit.
Yeah, sure. A little quieter.
Yeah. But kind of flappable. Kind of just there's not going to be there's not going to be a lot that
he's not Raptor legging Sandy Basket, let's put it that way, no matter what he does.
But he seems to have a calculating mind, and I watched a little bit of the Jomez practice round, and he was out there with Sexton and Germ, and he was just focused and just playing his game.
Yeah. So
I don't think that he'll be overly affected by the moment. I was also shocked to watch him just perform down the stretch at Idlewild and just grab that victory.
Yeah, it was so impressive. Obviously a Smashbox bum too. He was on the show last week, so no surprise. And real quick, he's not offended. I'm going to say he's the old man here in the top 10. Bradley Williams. He's in his upper 30s now, and I remember congratulating and talking to him right after USDGC last year. He had just a stellar finish there. And we were talking about, he was 36, 37, whatever at the time, just thinking he's been out there grinding for a lot of years. And to see him put together that back nine and probably very eloquently finesse his way through the course, smoothly, as I'm sure is how it went down. Pretty cool to see. So we'll see what he can do to
I think
take
this
on
course
Ivy Hill out there.
definitely favors him, the one that we're on.
Sure.
Because he is so smooth and he is so accurate. I'm curious as to how he's gonna attack the course tomorrow, because he isn't, not that none of these guys are short arms, but he doesn't have the distance that a lot of these other guys do. But if there's one guy who's going to keep it in the center of the fairway, it's Bradley Williams.
Yeah. I think a good scenario for him would be something like Stokely, but maybe a couple more birdies, so he could throw that out there and keep himself right in the mix. Although, I don't know, but I do think, I've talked to Bradley about this in the past. He definitely has a little criticism when, the distance is such a qualifying factor for scoring on a hole. He thinks that there is a role for that, but maybe not as, on as many holes
pronounced as we have
exactly
currently.
Sure. Yeah. And
all our short arms would say that.
But this seems like a course where that may play in. But he to his credit, he's a skilled craftsman of his game, and he is working on that distance, so he can throw it far. So you don't want to count him out.
Well, it'll be exciting to see, and again, the way he put it all together on the back nine, super impressive today, and Simon, in a very similar fashion. So I do love the fact, as a quick side note, Robinson, I love that he was the only guy on the card to get the birdie on 4, or did Paul get it too? I'm sorry. No, Paul and Robinson got it, but just a pure forehand shot. And then Robinson had CTP, and then everybody that was birdieing 16 today was doing it with a forehand. Meanwhile, Robinson puts himself up there and gets it. You love seeing it. I know we kind of play into that, whether it's James Conrad or a Kale LaVisca, these largely backhand, dominant players. And then it's just, it's funny to see them really show up.
Oh, Isaac threw a backhand on 16?
He threw a backhand.
Oh my!
And
goodness.
Still got the birdie, which
that's quite the backhand.
I remember previewing it and thinking like, yeah, for that hole, you're gonna try and throw it up. You can a backhand should get you to about 400 if you skip up, and then you just got to make a long putt. Like that, if you're getting up there, it's with a forehand. That's what we saw from every highlight, every shot, every player that got there was with a forehand. And then Isaac goes up there and gets it. So just funny on 2 very, very forehand friendly holes. He's showing up the rest of the card and picking up the birdie with a backhand, and that's what a world champ can do. So I love it. Ivy Hill closing out on Saturday and Sunday. This is kind of maybe a weird tangent, but Worlds finishing on a Sunday. For more than a decade, we saw Worlds finishing on a Saturday. That helped with crowds and all sorts of other things. All of our other Worlds, for the most part, are finishing on Saturdays still. Is that just a scheduling thing because that plays into the tour in any capacity? Is that a local thing? Do you have any input or thought on as to how or why that unfolds that way now?
Well, I know, we care about on-site and online, and I think in terms of viewership and spectators, but Saturday, Sunday are better viewership days for sure.
For sure.
We can certainly see that. Like if you go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if you add those spectators on site or the spectators online up versus Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to have more people.
It's that much more significant.
It is pronounced, on average. I'm not saying every time, but generally.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, and so this year, of course, like Smugglers in the last year and the last few years, we've seen it end on Sunday. And I just, as an old school Worlds participant and viewer like Johnny, we saw that shift. And that's also when we were playing all these other rounds and had a semifinals in the morning and a final 9. We're talking about a whole nother era of disc golf.
And I think that it also provided people travel time on Sunday to get back, and maybe that's not the primary concern. But I know that the Phoenix Waste Management Open for the PGA Tour tried to go to a Saturday finish because it's always up against the Super Bowl. And so one year it did finish on a Saturday, and the next year they went back to Sunday up against the Super Bowl, but they just ended early. So, I think that, when you look at those numbers, it becomes evident that if you want the most viewership and spectators, use the whole weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense, like you said, because back in the day when people were traveling on Sunday, there was all of 8 professional traveling disc golfers, and now we have most of the A pool are professional disc golfers. That is their job, and it doesn't matter. They don't have to be somewhere on Monday. The B pool is probably, or it's not the B pool. I think it's the C pool. Is that A and C, B and D or something?
No, it's A and B. It's A and B for the men.
And so the B pool might be a different thing, but we're in a different era of disc golf than we were, clearly, and I think it makes sense now to go to a Sunday where it wouldn't have a decade ago, or we'll say 11 years ago, before the Pro Tour.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. Is there anything else we need to recap from day one? And obviously we've even projected into day 2, but is there anything else we need to recap? And any other thoughts from today's action you were out there on the ground. I was in the booth. You were on the ground. Was there anything else that jumps out at you that you experienced, or?
Yeah, great crowd for day one. I mean, I think we touched on that. Maybe you guys did before, but it was a crowd that was pretty big. It seemed like a weekend crowd.
Okay.
For FPO, even and then all the way through. So I expect big crowds at Ivy. I think that they're going to probably set a record in terms of spectating, and maybe in the US. I'm not quite sure, but it's a great vibe. People are coming out and the weather looks to be really nice. So, I mean, I don't know what the winds are picking up. You mentioned it, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen too much. I haven't looked lately, but I haven't seen too much in terms of winds.
We're in prime spectating on site, online, broadcasting. It's going to be really enjoyable. So, tune in and get excited. Hopefully we have a legendary finish.
Yeah, I know the actual temperatures are certainly heating up over the next few days. Today, it was very comfortable. It felt like out there. Yeah. Right now in the forecast, we're seeing 79 for Thursday, high of 82 for Friday, 85 for Saturday, and 89 for Sunday. So, but then also, as you were just saying, 5 miles an hour or less.
Yeah.
For all 4 of the remaining rounds. It shouldn't be too much. It might be a little steamy out there when it pushes 90 come Sunday, but winds will be down. And right now, not showing, knock on some wood here, not showing any significant chance of rain whatsoever. So
we're going to have to get Statmando on this, but I'm looking at the scores, and with the conditions that we have, are we going to see an ace at this tournament? Has there been a Worlds where there hasn't been an ace? A Pro Worlds? Because there's not a lot of opportunities on these courses.
You're not wrong there.
I know
we're going to get an 8.
New London. I mean, obviously the course today, there's definitely a couple of very reachable ones. Tomorrow, that's
are we going to see an ace at this Worlds at all, in any pool, anywhere?
Yeah.
2. You could ace 2.
Yeah. What one did I watch? I was going to say it goes over the water. Gosh, it must be only 4 or 5. I feel like is a very, very attackable. The basket.
4 is downhill with the water behind it. I mean, that would be I'm shocking ace.
No, then I'm thinking of maybe 5. How far is 5?
5's up the hill.
No, that's not it then.
6 is downhill with the tight OB on both sides at Ivy, which you could ace. I mean, I heard a lot of players describe their play on 6, their strategy on 6 at Ivy Hill, as try to ace it, and if you don't, you'll have a circle inside the circle putt for 3.
Okay, yeah,
because the OB is very tight.
Okay, so if you're thinking of 6, I've heard that because it's 15 or 20 feet behind.
Right.
Emerson Keith said it yesterday. He's like, I'm going for an ace run, and if I go OB, I've got a 15-footer for par.
3.
Yeah, exactly. So then I must be thinking specifically of 7. As also, over the water, it kind of slopes just right, so you can be aggressive.
That'd be a sick ace.
Yeah, I think that that would not be crazy to see.
Are we going to see one, boys? What do you think? Yes or no? Are we going to see an ace?
Yes. Short answer is yes.
All right.
Yes, we can put down some side bets on that.
I don't know the course well enough. I haven't really seen Ivy, so.
I bet we see an ace on the front 9 of Ivy tomorrow.
Dang. Okay.
Ooh, nice.
And.
Maybe not on film. But.
Okay.
No, but
all right. I think we will see one. We have too many good great players, obviously the world's best, to not have somebody get one out there. So we'll see it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for the regular show. We'll see if Jeff needs another beer to stick around for an after show, but I know I am. Johnny, do we got anything else we got to worry about here in the regular show before we take a quick break and head into the after show?
No, man, it's Worlds Week.
It's Worlds Week.
It's all worlds. It's worlds. All
right, all worlds all the time. Well, I'm going to say thank you to Jeff, who may or may not sit around for the after show shenanigans. We'll see. But thank you for all the insight. Obviously, there's a lot of questions regarding the tour. Clearly, the resounding response is that I think people love seeing it out early. They may not have one in their backyard, and there's a process to get one, but seeing it early, starting to make plans, thinking about next year from a player, from a local organizing committee, as a spectator, as a volunteer, people submitting for vacation time, all of that stuff, like you said, all of that extra timing benefits pretty much everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I love that for sure.
Yeah, and 10th season. We made it to 10. If you want to support the tour, buy a season's pass. And the first people to buy season's passes, I think there's a couple left in each tier, get a free 10th season box.
Supporter box.
Yeah.
Man, don't make me go buy one in the after show.
So,
because I will.
Yeah.
Don't tempt me. All right. Well, then with that, this has been Smashbox TV podcast 520. Wednesday Worlds Edition is what we'll call it. Jeff Spring's been giving us so much insight into next year's tour and even talks about next year's Worlds and other majors. Great to have all that. We're going to take a super quick break and stand down and roll some credits. And then when we come back, we'll have the after show and wrap up some other odds and ends of on the course, off the course shenanigans or other things that might have been going on. So for Jeff Spring, thank you for joining. Johnny V, and I'm the Disc Golf Guy. We'll see you in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashboxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV Podcast 520's After Show. I don't think that was in the right order, but that's all right. We're here. People know what's going on.
Yeah, I know. We had a little bit of an extended break because you had to see Jeff out, and
Yep.
and he had to look up his Google Maps because his phone died. So it took an extra second or two, but it's okay. It's okay. It's
Yes.
okay.
Hope you guys are all here, and if you got questions, hopefully, it's kind of interesting to pay attention, obviously, to what Jeff's got going on, and then read what we've got on the board. I feel like if there's anything massive that you guys had, I found a way to sneak it in there and get be part of it. But yeah,
it was a good interview. It was a good talk with Jeff. I think it was nice to hear the plans of the tour and what's possibly going to happen next year and in future years. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, I'm glad hopefully that's a good reference point. And then when people have all these questions, they're like, oh no, he actually addressed this here. And obviously we want to be a resource, but hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, in the fact that so many times, even when the schedule came out, everybody had a take about why this happened or why that happened. And I feel like he answered a lot of those unknowns or people that were maybe second guessing or guessing about something, and hopefully we got it answered. So if not, well, we'll have him on for some other announcement, and we can round up any other additional questions. So after show, if you're not familiar, somehow you're new here, we talk about anything disc golf or non-disc golf related. Of course, Worlds Week, it's a Wednesday night already. That factors into things being already not normal. But I'm just so glad that we were able to get a round of play in and then kind of talk about what we saw today. So,
yeah, it just makes more sense for us to do it. And we've done it on Wednesdays for Worlds before.
Sure. Just
because Tuesday night is always the players' meeting, whether that's in person or digital, depending on how you want to consume it usually. But it makes things less hurried on Tuesday night. And there's so much more to talk about and speculate about, whether we're right, which I usually am, or wrong, right?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I want to ask, out on the board, I'm going to try and catch up on a few things in case I missed them. Tim Court said that World's trophy, though. Ugh.
Oh, no, that was Ed Root that said that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. There's Tim up there. Can we get a premium trophy for Worlds? Is that too much to ask? My question is, where did you see the trophy? And I only ask because I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't seen it, so I'd be curious to know.
He says something about a moonshine jug, like it's going to look like a jug of some sort. I don't know.
Okay. I'll just say this. I continue to not put a lot of stock in trophies. Not that I don't want good trophies. I can't emphasize enough, to me, and yes, I have a bias as a tournament director, but I can't emphasize enough when I do continue to see all these trophy conversations and criticisms. They're so damn subjective, and there's so often I see a trophy and I immediately I'm like, yeah, I can get behind that, or I like that, or that's different, but I like it because it's different. And I'll go back as recent even as the 22 Worlds in Emporia, and there was a lot of criticism of those trophies for Kristin and Paul, mostly by everyone who didn't win one. But there's a lot of criticism of those two trophies. I picked it up and felt it's 15 or 20 pounds or whatever it was. It was different, and I don't feel like the pictures did it justice, but I really liked it. And I don't know. That's all I can really drive home the point. They're so subjective.
Just a group of people who want a more professional looking, I'm going to put that in quotes, trophy, the silver cups, the glass chalices, the things like that the unique trophies don't ring with them. And
okay.
At least that's
so
how
often I find those boring.
I'm with you. Like, to me, a lot of those trophies just feel generic. There's not a lot of history behind them. There's not a lot of, like, obviously Music City Open, the guitar, everyone seems to love that. I love the Idlewild with the airplane
propeller. Sure.
propeller. And I know they don't get to keep that airplane propeller, I don't believe, but I think they get a different.
Yeah,
they
fly
get
away.
They might fly away. I think there is something fun and unique about, the Texas and the belt buckle and the hat. I think that's awesome. There's very few trophies that I walk up and I say, oh yeah, I'd really love it if this were a giant silver cup or a silver bowl or not that those can't be cool. I just think they take so much longer to become iconic. Like those, they're generic. I feel like for the first 4 or 5 years, you're like, oh, cool, a silver cup, a gold chalice, or whatever that is, and they will pick it up at some point. You'll be like, oh yeah, this is our kind of whatever. I just feel like I like the uniqueness of trophies in general.
Yeah. Again, I'm only just being nosy. Well, that's not nosy. I'm truly curious as to. I'm not seeing it. Ed.
It's on.
I thought you said it was on
Ledgestone Instagram page, is what Ed said.
Instagram specifically. Okay, I was looking on the Ledgestone site. I have not seen them, and no matter what, I don't want to make really honestly any reaction to it, one way or another.
And Edward
right now,
says,
but I am curious to see.
The Stanley Cup is the best of all trophies. Why is it the best? It's a big silver cup. Is it the best because of the tradition that goes with it of bringing it places, and they all, they party with it and they drink out of it? Like that's not the trophy. That's the experience with the trophy. Do you feel like the trophy itself is really cool because it's a big, however tall it is, 3-foot cup? Like, if that's cool to you, that's awesome. I think it's fine. I don't think the trophy itself, and God, I'm going to get so many haters for this. I don't think the trophy itself, by looking at it, is like spectacular. It's a big, cool, tall cup. Like, that's all. 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
I
don't disagree.
It has that tradition to it, where you the white glove approach to it, and the whole thing around it makes it, awesome. Look at the Lombardi Trophy. It's a football on a stand. I think that's kind of cool because it's unique. It's a little different. It's different than just your typical, I'm going to hand you a giant gold plate or something along those lines. So, but again, everybody has their own preference.
I just put it in the chat. I found the reference, and I'll just quickly read the caption that goes along with it. Yeah, it's essentially a jug. 90 holes between our competitors and world champion, conceptualized by our team and made reality by ceramic artist Kathy Keynes. This year's trophy was designed as a homage to the wealth of culture and history found in Virginia. 2 of these trophies will be hoisted on Sunday. Who will win them? Blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to say it. I love it.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
I'm totally good with it. I love the fact that it does have that regional appeal to it.
It's handmade,
and that it's handmade, clearly by a professional artist. I love it. I'm totally good with it. I don't know, and it's fine if you don't. And that, again, subjective, but I think it's fine.
Who's that?
Fine is understating it. I like it a lot.
Meat Hander Sound says, I want to hear it blow. I'm with you. Pop that lid, and I want to hear you play some jug music with it. I'd be awesome with that. Or, you know what? If Own wins, fill that puppy up.
Yeah, assuming that's a working top on it, then I'm not sure about. Speaking of, I say this. I go to tournaments only to support locals, which is why after that one, I'm going to introduce you to the 3-notched bourbon barrel aged Biggie S'mores Imperial Stout.
Biggie S'mores?
Biggie S'mores. Yeah, the Biggie S'mores. Is that going to find?
Never. It's never going to focus. There we go.
There we go. Biggie S'mores. I think I was told this is local. We're gonna say it is tonight for the supporting Virginia. This notoriously BIG bourbon barrel aged stout is literally dessert in a can. It's pretty good. 11.7 and 40 IBUs. So in Charlottesville, Virginia. So
you are
I'm here to support
commentating with Nate Doss, who is clearly a beerhead. Has he been visiting?
Yeah, 5-time brewer of the year in Central Oregon.
Yeah,
5-time.
Pretty solid.
They've only been in business for 5 years, and he's won brewer of the year 5 consecutive years. Pretty damn impressive. So shout out to Nate and Bevel.
Have you had any beer conversations with him since he's been here? Has he been checking out some of the local establishments? Not necessarily going to drink, but just going to I want to check out this brewery. I want to check out.
Yeah, him and Val and family, I believe they didn't have to be at the players meeting. It's something I enjoy, so I went to the players meeting last night. I may be one of those few idiots that enjoys going to player meetings in an event I'm not playing in, but the world's is special. So I went to that. Some great conversations, ton of great people to talk to after the fact, and then caught up with Leighton and Steve Brinster. We went to up the road to a nearby rooftop bar. A couple other disc golfers, of course, were there as well. And great conversation. And I guess Nate and family were just down the road at a brewery they visited, which I didn't know at the time. I found out that today. So I think they went and checked out some local place. Again, as Nate and well, a lot of the world knows, I've become very much I have a one-track mind when it comes to the the beverages that I enjoy, and they're very difficult to find in most places. And so they went, I'm sure, did their market research as they should for some other breweries in the genre or style beer that they do. But I had to shop locally at another place at a cellar to get what I wanted tonight. So I think they're going to probably take it easy. Val's got to get up early.
Yeah.
Every morning, not as early as normal when we're on the West Coast, I'll say that. But Val is up obviously on the FPO show, and then I have a much later start in the afternoons. But Nate is also up. He kind of does some of the on-site tech work, and I don't think most of the world knows that. But
no, I think so many people get and I'm a huge fan of Nate. I like Nate in the booth. I know maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know. I haven't looked at the thing. But I do believe that not a lot of people understand the full capabilities of Nate Doss and what he does outside of commentating to help out with the booths and on-site and stuff like that, that they don't, it's harder for them to appreciate it. So,
yeah, well, he was helping and confirming everything to go. He is the perfect on-site go-between. Along with the control room and Charlie Eisenhood certainly knows what he's doing as well. Charlie's very versed in a lot of this or all of this, but it's great to have a computer / network / tech guy that really knows a lot of the ins and outs, and Nate fills that role perfectly. So he wants to make sure that the FPO side also gets kicked off, and he kind of acts as a go-between / first level help desk if he needs to as well. So he's there as part of that solution in the morning. You don't see him, or he's not on a camera or anything like that, but he's there to help and support the FPO side as well. And I can't say enough about that. So they've got a much earlier morning than I have. Speaking of which, as some of you saw on IG, Johnny and I didn't even talk about it personally, but I had an early morning / wild adventure in my travels to getting here. I'll try to go through it quickly, but roughly 5:30 on Monday was when I was supposed to fly out of Milwaukee and have a quick layover in Baltimore to get to Richmond, Virginia, to then make the 2-hour drive to Lynchburg. That was my Monday night. Well, that got pushed back about an hour to 6:30 or so on Monday, which was no big deal because then they didn't need to, but they pushed back also my connecting flight. I get eventually about an hour late, I get into Baltimore. By that time, my leg is throbbing. I've been suffering from some poison ivy.
Where did you pick up poison ivy?
Presumably, filming in Grand Rapids, Michigan for the MPO Worlds. I was trying to get all sorts of crazy shots. I was hanging out in the woods all the time, more than normal, and I had to have gotten it there. And so, and it very quickly spread, and then me not really reacting to poison ivy or getting it often, I didn't really know what to expect. So I just kept dealing with it at home, so to speak. The lotions and the Zanfels and all that other stuff. I did all of those things, and the gauzing, and then it was pussing, and it was really gross, but I was fighting through it.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Oh no, there's pictures. I'll send them to you. And by Monday night, after about 5 or 6 days of this, by Monday night, it finally got to a point where it just truly was difficult for me to walk. My leg hurt. It was sore because it extends really from my upper thigh all the way down to my shin.
Did you talk to Paul Macbeth at all? That guy's probably got a lot of solutions because he is so sensitive to poison.
I did talk to Seth Muncie from the Pro Tour at one point, and he said, yeah, that's you're looking at cellulitis. I'm like, are you calling me fat? And apparently cellulitis isn't related to that. Yeah, it's different, but yeah, it's basically an infection, and that often stems from open wounds and things of that nature. And he's like, I'd go get it checked out. I'm like, I'm on a layover in Baltimore right now. I don't even know when I'm going to get out of here. They pushed that back 3, 4, 6, 10 times. And next thing you know, I'm instead of arriving in Richmond, Virginia at 10:30 at night, I'm getting there at 12:30 at night or 1 o'clock at night. And of course, I'm calling. I've got hotel to deal with. I've got also rental car. I call Enterprise and I say, hey, you close at midnight, but I'm getting in at 1. Will somebody still be there? And they said, did you attach your flight information? I said, I did, because I learned this years ago. Mm-hmm. I said, I attached my flight reservation to my actual rental reservation. They said, you're good. They'll stay up there. They'll stay there up to 2 hours because they know you're coming in and they can see that. I said, perfect. That's why I do this. I learned this the hard way years ago. They said, yep. I called back later when we finally boarded the plane after more delays. They too said, yep, you're good. I said, can we call the local, call to Richmond? They said, no, you're good. You're good. It'll be all good. People will be there.
I know where this is going, Terry.
I land, and sure enough, where do I walk? I walk to right where the rental cars are. There's no one there. It's now 1:30. There's no one there. I call into Enterprise again, and I get the general number, and yeah, somebody should be there. I said, well, somebody's not. Well, they open at 7 a.m. Well, that doesn't do me any good. Meanwhile, I've convinced I already need to go to the ER anyway, so I have to Uber to the ER. 15,
how many people Uber from the airport to the ER?
Bingo. I thought the same question. And here's the worst part. I learned the hard way after a few Uber acceptances and then cancellations. These MRFers the Ubers are accepting rides and then immediately canceling them, because then it helps the algorithm think on Uber's side more people keep requesting, and then it jacks up the price. They're creating their own fake surging.
Wow.
Because one guy, license plate TBZ something, accepted me and then canceled on me, and then accepted and then canceled, and then 20 minutes later I see him picking someone up, and I'm like, is that for me? And it wasn't. And I find out these guys are just creating their own surges with this workaround.
Brilliant.
Loophole. Yes. So originally when he accepted, it was going to be $20-some. It ended up being $45.
What?
Because they got the surge. And when I finally then got there, anyway, story long.
I'd complain to Uber personally, but
2:30 a.m. I'm checking into ER. 10 a.m. I'm leaving ER to then go back to the take an Uber back to the Richmond airport, get to Enterprise, who then wants to F with me more. Oh no.
No, you didn't.
They gave me a car because it's good for 24 hours. And I said, where were you last night? Not to him, but in general. Like, oh, well, we're open till 1, and we usually stay about 15 minutes after that. I said, no. The policy is you were open till midnight, supposedly, and you stay 2 hours after. Which is it? Needless to say, I got manager's number. I went all straight Karen or Chad or whatever. I wasn't mean to him, but so there's a discrepancy there. And I get in my car after almost no sleep out of the ER. I drive 2 hours to show up here in Lynchburg to go right to IV to get a preview of the IV course, to then sit in on the press conference for a little while, to then go to the Lynchburg course, to then go to the players meeting. And that, my friends, was yesterday. Oh, and then I got some apple crisp, and life was all good again.
I saw the picture of the apple crisp. So
yeah, you saw the payoff.
You
saw the payoff.
So how was your leg? Getting better?
Here, let me show you. Let me get.
It's gonna fall down. I'm gonna laugh.
I've got steroids. I've got prednisone. I've got Calfex.
All right.
And it's not oozing. It's not disgusting. It looks gross, but it's just a lot of dry skin and a mild amount of irritation. And I have to say this. Thank you. I wasn't looking for pity. I was definitely frustrated. But thank you. So many of you said kind words and words of encouragement and support via my Instagram. Where
your leg won't fall off, Terry. Don't worry.
My legs, but I genuinely do appreciate it. There were so many. I'm going to name him. I'm going to name a few of them, but a few people like Parker Welk sent me a DM after seeing my message and said, "Where are you? Can I come pick you up? Can I help you?" or something of that nature. Nate Perkins, reached out personally. Madison Walker, like I sorry, I'm calling you guys out. You were just so generously caring and kind, and I do appreciate it. And tons of other people, and then specifically a few of the golfers, and some people didn't know I was 2 hours away. Maybe the offer wouldn't have stood. I don't know, but just thank you. There were a lot of kind souls, and then other people from all around the world that were sending me positive messages, and even a couple of home remedies to prescription conversations and everything in between. But
did they say anything about wrapping it? Should you not wrap it? Should you, like, I was thinking like like lotion it up with an ace bandage around it or something?
Yeah, like let it breathe versus don't get it infected and everything in between. Yeah. Exactly. I'm to the point where
put some Barbasol on it.
put it on your leg.
That's great, Tim.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I literally was last night I was literally Googling, should I put lotion on this? I've had the calamine lotions and sprays. I've done everything. Well, I haven't done a lot of the home remedies. I didn't go get baking soda or I don't know, brown sugar, whatever you guys recommended. I didn't do some of that, but I tried Zanfel for the first time. I'd practically thrown away the bottles. Like, I don't care. I don't get poison ivy. And then I just got some Zanfel from
you told me about
from Leadstone.
You literally told me about this.
I like put it together and tried to rub it together as paste, and it provided some relief. But I think it might have been too late that I was already in like infection world already. So I don't think that really did anything for me. I am definitely on the mend. I am no longer oozing through bandages and pants or whatever. But it's been, oh no, like you didn't even get the pictures all weekend, Johnny. I spared you because I've had some oozing, goozy, disgusting things on my leg for the last week, and I spared you. I know how
thank you.
You get oozy over it. So
no, actually, that little thing wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, but it's been it really, what started to scare me too is just the idea of this cellulitis infection.
This is my favorite.
And then just swelling.
We see someone says ice bath, and then the very next comment is the best relief is to actually put the hottest water you can on it. You've got an ice bath or the hottest water. So wrap it or let it breathe, Terry.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Everybody has their remedies.
I'm sure.
And
my cousin used to swear up and down. He would get regular headaches, not migraines, but headaches. He swore up and down that for him, if he got a headache, and I don't know how he figured this out for himself, brush his teeth and then stick his head in a freezer.
Wow, I thought you were just going to say the standard, like stand in hot water, because
No,
that's
literally,
also
he would-
and that's apparently clinically proven. But anyway,
he would go into the house like when we were younger. This is when we were teenagers. He would brush his teeth if he started to get a headache, and he'd open up the fridge like he was trying to cool himself off and stick his head in the freezer for like a minute. And he swore up and down that helped him. I looked at him every time like, you are a nut job, kid. And I was a kid. I think I was like a year or two older than him, but that was his remedy for his headaches. I don't know if the toothbrushing did any good or if it was just the freezer, but that was what he did. And that's, yeah.
Well, anyway, yeah, all these remedies and ER was interesting. I think I talked to like 8 or 10 different people. They did, with all the traveling I've been doing and probably the fact that I'm like 2 pounds overweight, they wanted to double check me for blood clots, which is seemingly common. And so I had an ultrasound done on my leg.
Are you pregnant?
All up and down my leg. No. But I did have an ultrasound done, and there was no blood clots. Obviously, that's very good. But yeah, it was far more trying. And I'm not saying poor me. And most of my travels typically are really good, and I am really blessed. But this injury on top of some less than ideal travel made for a disastrous Monday night into Tuesday. So, but guess what? Apple crisp and a few imperial stouts and
maybe you should pour imperial stout on it. Maybe you should pour imperial stout.
No, I can't. I'd rather pay a doctor bill than have to pay that.
Well, that's good.
So there was that, and yeah. Nonetheless, I will say it again. Just thank you to everyone, and we'll see if I can just got to take this prednisone and this. I think
I'm sure it's all good to take while you're drinking.
Yeah, recommended. Honestly,
it's in the fine print. Please take with alcohol of at least 12%.
Apparently, the prednisone. If you Google it, I think everyone will tell you who's taken it. Weird dreams, tough time sleeping, all these other weird effects come from prednisone.
So the alcohol will help you sleep with your weird dreams.
See, it's all about balance, folks. That's why you have Biggie S'mores to help you out. So that's what I'm here for. And 2:00 afternoon starts. That's also what I'm here for. All right. So that was my craziness. Which again, many of you followed along, and it's hopefully all behind us. And Jeff wasn't joking. Like, this is one time and one weekend. I am very ecstatic. I'm going to be in a very warm booth, too warm, but I'll be in the booth as opposed to skinny old Nate and Brian running around up and down those hills. Good luck to those guys.
Yeah, like I said, give them a little extra break. Give them a little extra notice before you call on them. Give them a little breather, because and I'm not judging by any means, but you can hear Brian occasionally with a little out of breath in some of those check-ins, and I don't blame him.
Yeah,
he's hiking up and down with those players. So, but if it's going to be even worse at this next course, man, yeah.
I'll say this. This is. I'll pull back the curtain for a moment. Just walking a course, just imagine going out and walking your local course at a rapid speed where you're like keeping up with the players and walking around. It can be 100% flat, and it is very difficult to not sound breathy when you've just got done walking. And too many of our players, or I'm sorry, too many of our on the ground people, myself included, have been given a hard time for sounding a little breathy.
I think it
even
sounds
on
sexy,
completely flat grounds. Yeah, exactly. It's just very difficult to be walking along and all of a sudden you're called on, and somebody's looking for a response for something, and you were just simply walking along. And yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with being in shape or not, because we both know that Brian and Nate are in shape. They're a little breathy. I'm going to sometimes be. It's just a fact of the matter. So lay off them. Be nicer to them. That's what I'm trying to say. Some more great opinions in the in the chat I'm reading for the home remedies, and I love it.
Have you? Is there any? Is there any? I don't say juicy gossip. Is there any off the course talk going on? Like, what is the topic of conversation amongst the golfers right now? Like, that's not golf. Is there anything?
Yeah,
really
unfortunately, that's a better question. Unfortunately, for tomorrow night, and I only say that because today everyone was over at. Well, not everyone. Sorry, April was over at New London, and I pretty much got onto the property and went straight up into the. Today, I went right up to the booth, and which is over at Ivy. I didn't really have any conversations with any of the players, the few that were there. Tomorrow, I think it'll be a little more interactive because everyone's going to finish. We're going to wrap up the tournament central, and I'll walk outside to probably still seeing a few of the pros out there. Our MPO players still hanging out. I didn't have that luxury today. They weren't there, and then that's when I'll be able to take it. Is there a Fly Mart? Oh, I just had a same thing. When I go to a Fly Mart, when I go to some of these other things, that's when I'll find out more of what's being talked about. I think the number one topic of conversation yesterday was just Ivy and
not poison
growing
ivy
on people.
But
no, not mine. Although a lot did ask, but just the course growing on some players. It's so tough because New London Tech is so highly regarded and loved that no matter what course I feel like you pair with it, people are going to be, yeah, but I really love New London Tech. And then Ivy, came with a lot of mixed reactions. And I feel like it's tougher for the FPO than it is. I think that's what Jeff was saying. Tough for the FPO compared to the MPO. And, I think of an Isaac Robinson who he flat out said in the press conference, he's like, yeah, first time I played this, I hated it. It's like, but then I kind of figured out where I needed to land and what I needed to do. And now I like it, I think is what he said. I think that's true of a lot of our players who
I can
maybe
understand
saw it the first time and they're like,
if you walk up to a course and you're like, oh, this thing is really long, it's really up and down hills, what am I going to do? It doesn't, like, as Isaac is probably thinking, he's like, it's probably not favoring me until you get to know the course and you realize that, I mean, obviously distance favors everybody, but that once you learn how to play the course, maybe you see it from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, when you figure it out and get more comfortable with it, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So we'll see.
The only other news that really happened this week, Terry, was more sponsorship talk. Carter Aarons leaving Lone Star as well. That was a topic of conversation in a lot of places. That happened since we recorded last Tuesday when we spoke about. I think we spoke about Lone Star last week, and now this week
with regard to Chandler and
Leah and Robert and Leah. Is Carter here this week? I didn't even look, to be honest.
He is.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw him yesterday. Talked with him and his dad.
Okay.
And he was throwing some destroyers. He was throwing some race. He had a couple other discs.
So he's already opened up his bag.
Yeah, and he's putting with an agent, that he used to putt with when he was sponsored by DD.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have had a Lone Star disc in his bag. Maybe not. But yeah, I mean, he just throwing whatever. And it was a great conversation with him and his dad, just talking about, how they feel and where things are going. And he just said that was what was best for him. Sounds like it was ultimately his decision to do what he did, and not necessarily parting on bad terms. Yes, everyone is guessing and speculating as to what it all means, but Carter and his dad seemed to be okay with where things were at. And let's face it, I mean, Carter, with so much talent, is clearly going to land in a position of a sponsorship that will work out what's best for him at some point, and that just seemingly wasn't the right fit right now. So, I don't know. I can't say enough. I mean, he said it in his post, but then he said it to me even personally, essentially, that he's thankful for what they did for him, and he is good with the decision. So that's what I can say to that. And I love talking to his dad. Great people. His mom's out here as well, supporting him. And I met them and talked to them a little bit at Portland last year. Really switching gears in a major way that, of course, was still met with plenty of criticism, which is fine. If you, I don't have the right cocky analogy for it yet, but I'll think of one. But yeah, PDGA announced yesterday that favoriting is here.
Ooh.
And yes, I know UDisc had it before. The whole world knows that. And you can throw out the comment that yes, they had it before and we're finally catching up, which is true, but also it's here. So
I'm happy it's here.
You go.
Exactly.
That's my main takeaway as well.
The way I look at it,
did you not have it for a few months? No, you didn't. Did it upset you? Sure.
Should it have? No.
I get it. But nonetheless, it's here now.
It's such to me, it's such a luxury item. Like, I was more frustrated at not having core stats, not having detailed stats, not having like other features. Like the favoriting feature is nice. I'm glad we have it. But as I said, I feel like it's a luxury. If the PDGA announced yesterday that favoriting was there and they hadn't done anything since the beginning of the season, I think I would have a different outtake or a different take in general. But the PDGA has been constantly updating PDGA Live. It's not like it's been stagnant. They've been updating, and this is just one of those features that just finally, guess what? It wasn't a priority. And I understand for some people it is a priority, but guess what? If you do favoriting in April and leave core stats off until now, how many more people are going to be upset? Like, there is a priority list that you have to do. And like you said, yes, we had it last year with UDisc. UDisc was awesome, but they also grew for multiple years in order to get a lot of these features. They didn't come out of the gate with it. The other thing I say is, people are complaining about like, oh yeah, we switched these different systems, that we go from this, that we had all these features to this one that had less. Yeah, but you know what? And it's too bad Jeff's not here. The DGPT also saved 6 digits of worth of money by switching from UDisc to the PDGA. Because I'll tell you what, I doubt they're paying anything for this PDGA app because they're partners with the PDGA versus what they were paying for UDisc. Because UDisc had to employ people just to work with this side of the field. And UDisc does a great job at what they do. I love UDisc. I use it myself. It's awesome. But we already saw the Pro Tour go through layoffs. Imagine if they suddenly had 1, 2, 3 less people's salary this year. Like, what is that worth to somebody? So that you can have your favorite. Yeah. That's all the things I look at when people get so up in arms. And I'm waiting for the next thing that they complain about that they have or didn't have or whatever. But I'm happy they have it. I'm glad the PDGA is continuing to iterate on the PDGA Live app. If you don't see it, you have to update your app, by the way. Make sure you do that. I had to do it this morning. Whatever. It's good. It's good to have it. I love it. I'm glad they have it. It's great. It's now people shut up.
Dismissing it. Yeah, I'm not dismissing it or claim that it wasn't a disappointment not to have. Of course, I'm not saying that either, but it is here. If you want your first remark, I mean, I feel like there's really 2 trains of thought. Your first remark can be, yeah, that's awesome, I'm excited, or, oh, it's here finally. Fine. I guess, right, is that just an outward perspective on life in general of whether you want to take it positively or negatively? Either way, it's here. I think this is a very random side note. We had feature cards with regards to today, as we do pretty much every event. I think I was also alerted or let it known to me that everything outside of the feature cards, then they were sorted by player rating as opposed to being completely random. And that's per rules. You can do that as well. But we don't see it as often. Usually it is random outside of the feature cards. This event, I believe, was for today, and this only mattered for today's round anyway. But for today, they were then sorted by rating. And I thought that was cool and not probably something that's typically done.
No.
But I thought that was good. So All right. I'm going to read a few more things on the board. Mike said it seemed like such a simple feature to have. I don't disagree, but like Johnny just said, there's also we all say that, right? Like you, and what I mean by that is
don't
it's
even
a
tell
priority.
Don't even tell me about simple features when it comes to these apps. As a guy now who's learning and doing development on Skip-Ace myself, like the littlest things, sometimes you don't realize the impact they're going to have on so many other back end things. You're like, just today, somebody was complaining like, "Oh, our live scoring isn't working for the PDG or for Skip-Ace for the Worlds," and I was like, "Yep, you're right," because with Worlds, there's a whole new separate because of pools. So then, when you have pools, the PDGA changes the data in the backside a little bit, and my system went like, "Oh, sorry, I don't know what that means." So now I need to dig into it and see if I can fix it or make a whatever. Like there are so many little things. Now it could have been a simple feature that took them a week to make. I don't know. But again, just understand that it's probably not as simple as you think. It might not be as hard as we would hope it had been if it take this long, but I guarantee you it isn't as simple as someone just like, oh, I just need to program a star here and this there, and now you can favorite them. I bet there was more behind the scenes than we even can guess.
Yeah, and yeah, laborious or not, I get it. Would we have all loved to see it earlier? Sure.
Yeah.
I also get that. Fine. But like you just said, I think about the people that reach out to, hey, can you just throw this video together quickly? Can you just do this? Or even I sometimes, even all these years of being non-creative, I'll send something to a creative person and be like, hey, I think this is like a 10-minute thing. Could you just do this quick? Little do I know it's actually an hour and 10-minute thing. So when you know, that's just a microcosm of the bigger picture. Is like what feels like could be so easy. Maybe it is. But then again, it's probably not. When I think about browsers and all the different iterations, along with mobile compatibility and all this other user interface and other fancy terms, yeah, it's who knows. Either way, it's here. That's the takeaway. It's here. It's available. And like you just said, Johnny, let's say it even louder. If you don't see it, update your app. And I do wish I would have even said that in my video I did with Steve Gans yesterday. Fair that you maybe saw my video and you're like, oh sweet, I'm gonna go try it, and then it wasn't there. You may have to update your app. So put it out there, letting everyone know. Take it as good news or whine that the thing that you wanted is finally here and then still complain. That's fine too, but either way it's there. That would be my takeaway.
I was trying to rack my brain over what the next thing that people are going to complain about the live thing is. Like what are we missing now that you just had that we don't, and I can't.
I'm sure there's other great stuff that was developed through a number of years, and nobody loves what feels like a reduction in some capabilities, and so I'm not dismissing that.
No, nor am I.
Is it worth a complete uproar? That's I guess always the question as to how loud and frustrated you want to get about it. Guess we'll see. They don't remember when there was no live coverage, or even worse, when only live was Smashbox. Yeah, that's honestly fair. It is. I mean, we, our earliest stuff was as excited as we were, and as much as it was better than nothing, it still was not very good anywhere near compared to what we have. It's all part of growing. I guess they don't remember when we didn't have coverage from several holes at Northwoods. Yeah, Mike, that is a perfect comment. I was thinking about that earlier with Jeff Spring on the show. We literally came live on the last 9 holes of Northwoods for a year or two because we couldn't cover at the time the first 9 holes at all. We literally had no signal. In fact, Nate Heinold at one point in like the second ever Ledgestone hired Smashbox to come do live. And I remember sitting in a parking lot at Northwood talking to Johnny, barely, via cell phone, trying to find ways we could possibly get our simple units to just literally give him a signal. And we're talking 2014, 2015, to just even give him a signal. And it wasn't even possible. And I was in the parking lot, like one of the better spots. To fast forwarding to all of this other stuff that is now currently being used and implemented, they're light years apart in terms of money and investment and infrastructure and technology, light years apart from 2015 to where we are now. And do you still get a pixelated signal? 100%. You absolutely do. Do you get frustrated? Absolutely. And I understand that it's not perfect. It's still light years ahead of where we were in those early days. And Ledgestone specifically, because Nate Heinold at the time was one of the guys that said, "I'll pay for live. I'll do it." Like only a few events did.
He was on the cutting edge.
And Nate Heinold was like, "I want live. Let's do live." And I showed up with all of our equipment, which fit in like a box at the time, not an entire trailer, all of our equipment. And I tell you, we did everything we possibly could and still couldn't provide live that year. So it's come a long way. That's for sure. Jim says, "Would you rather have Jomez or ESPN?"
I'm not exactly sure what he means by that. Like, does he mean like Jomez that we have now versus ESPN if we were like high quality live ESPN? I think you have to take the high quality live ESPN over Jomez. Just because like live is king. It is the most exciting. It covers the most people. Jomez is great, but as I've said for 10 years, like if I watch a Jomez video, which I don't watch a lot of post production, it is to catch up on what happened, like a recap video almost. And I will sit there with my button on the fast forward and kind of burn through it and watch a little hole and skip through it. I think you have to kind of say ESPN, but I would hate to lose Jomez. I mean,
yeah, right. Yeah, and everyone's perspective is a little different as to if we're talking about a specific event, if you're talking about the longevity, things overall. Everyone has a different angle on that. I wanted to. What was I going to? I think we covered all of that. I'm excited to see what the. Back to coverage of. I'm excited to see coverage and how things look tomorrow in terms of Ivy Hill and what's out there.
Have they said anything about
not necessarily the scores?
At Ivy Hill, like is it the cell signal?
As far as I know, it's good.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't heard otherwise. I'm just excited to see how it looks on camera as a. Not necessarily are they shooting 2 down or 20 down.
Looks flat.
I'm concerned like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell that to Brian tomorrow. What's your problem, bro?
Dude, it looks so flat
out there.
What are you doing? What are you complaining about?
No, we'll see. I think that's all that I have on World's Insight for now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean. Okay. A few triple mash may change my mind in the next
Garrett
couple
Dupree,
nights.
Thank you for the super chat.
What?
Thanks, Garrett. $2 super chat.
Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate it.
I thought the super chat was
Terry.
broken.
Yeah, no kidding. You guys did it? No, it works. Does it accept more than $2?
Terry, have any Fly Girl rocks you would sell?
Are you talking when you say Fly Girl? No, I guess I was thinking. Are you referencing like the hula hoop dancing girl on the
old Ching stamp?
Not in color. Ching stamp. Thank you. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something more recent? Because if you're talking something more recent, I'm going to admit this to you guys. I have significantly backed off of buying wholesale Frisbees from all manufacturers. Now, I haven't stopped entirely, but I have significantly backed off this year. Truly for the first year in 20 years. I am not buying all of the latest releases from all of the different manufacturers. A, I just can't keep up, and B, I'm not in a position week in and week out to actively be selling them, which hasn't stopped me in years past, but I'm just not. It pains me. I get an MVP newsletter and an Infinite newsletter, and then a Discraft message, and then a message from Dynamic, and then a message from Innova. I literally get all of those like almost daily.
Mm-hmm.
here's the latest disc, here's the latest release, and I'm just like, and Prodigy, DGA, whomever, I get all these messages, all these emails, as a wholesaler and distributor, whatever, and I'm just like, oh man, I can't keep up. So I finally felt overwhelmed, where I'm like, I can't just keep ordering 100 discs left and right and think I'm going to go out and sell them next weekend, because next weekend I'm not going to be able to sell them because I'm working some other tournament. So anyway, I don't know what Ching Rocks is what Jim says. Southern Bell. Yeah, you should send me a pic of what you're. It doesn't sound like, if I don't even know for sure your reference, unfortunately, I worry that I don't have what you're looking for. The Fly Girl rocks, unless you're talking the Ching rocks from years ago, which others have said, and even those I didn't really get any of those. I have other Ching stamped rocks, but none with. Not too many with that logo or that
Do you have any
particular
Jujus?
stamp.
Because you can get some from Scott.
I do.
Now.
No, I do. And in fact, I was selling one day at a park, and a gentleman said, "I will pay you top dollar." I said, "I'll have to dig them out. I've got 10 of them in a box somewhere," because those went out of production for many years, and I still have 10 of them somewhere. And yeah, it's so funny because he unfortunately validates what I always my logic, which is, well, nobody's buying these right now, but if I just tuck them away, somebody's going to want them sometime. He kind of just validated me when he said that. It's like, yeah, I didn't liquidate these. I didn't get rid of everyone. I put 10 of them in a box and tucked them away because somebody someday is going to want them. Well, hopefully I can cash out on that someday.
Hopefully the 10 that you kept, you can sell one and make up for those 10 that you kept.
Yeah, hopefully. Exactly. Instead of liquidating them. Buzzed Swan says, it's a big step, Terry. Yeah, that's part of my addiction is no longer buying every single thing that comes out. Jim Brown also says, for those who likely don't know, rest in peace, Larry Leonard. Yeah, I saw that. I saw a celebration of life for Larry that took place not too long ago. Yeah, a great human and individual. The few times Johnny and I often were together when we were around him, largely at a Worlds or a USDGC. Very kind soul, and me, like others, I guess, weren't aware of some of his struggles before he passed. But yeah, very kind soul. The little bit of time I was around him, always such a stand-up guy. So certainly sad to hear that as well. I saw that from Robert Leonard and a few others not that long ago. So certainly rest in peace. Garrett says, I sent you an image, Terry. I'm not sure how you sent it, but I'm sure I'll find it in one of my socials. Got any sweet old Millennium? You mean like Q JLSs and an original
were those the LS 1.2s or something?
Well, yeah, I mean all of the LS, LS, which was always just a leopard mold. And I used to throw JLSs. I loved the JLS. I'd still throw it today. I've got not that many. Omega 1.2s were the go-to for myself and Tom Jenkins. That was pretty much an AVR mold with a slightly different texture to it. And then they got all sorts of other weird feeling textures. But the 1.2, the Millennium 1.2 was a go-to putter for so many people, for sure. And I do have some of those still. I always imagine Terry's disc golf collection like the last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't fully get that reference.
Not quite as organized.
Okay.
The last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, they take the Ark of the Covenant, which Indy has found, and the U.S. government, I'm assuming, takes it into this warehouse that's just like this giant warehouse with boxes and boxes of things that are stacked up, presumably these special items that are now hidden wherever, and it actually makes a slight recurrence, I believe, in the fourth Indy movie, like a kind of cameo. But yes, it goes into some giant warehouse full of just boxes. It's kind of like Terry's storage. But
and then Nicolas Cage shows up with a map or something.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, but not fully organized by any means. I'll keep threatening with this, and Johnny loves it, and I'll keep threatening this idea. At some point, there will be an entire YouTube series of me pulling out a bin of discs, going through that bin, and then essentially telling you ideally what every disc or every handful of those discs mean, or where they come from, or whatever the story is behind them.
I keep saying
where
you should
if I
start
remember
recording them before you die.
Yeah, if I remember where I got them from,
Cellulitis.
or what the significance was, because you're gonna find like what you'll find there. I'll find, and you'll see, is I ran a tournament in 1999, and here's 5 DX, because that was the only plastic. But here's 5 DX Eagles, 3 Gazelles, and 4 Rocks from that tournament with this tournament stamp on it. And then you'll also find the player pack, a couple of player pack discs from the Worlds that I was in that year. And then you'll also find some 2001 discs, or no, let me back up, some 1997 discs that I actually won while playing in AM2. And that might all be in a single bin spanning these 33 discs. And it's crazy to think, if I have 10,000 plus Frisbees, it's crazy to think how so many of them I still have some semblance, some loose semblance,
where they come, or what
tie
they represent.
Yeah, exactly. Or, this is when I was in my Gazelle phase, so here's 32 Gazelles. And I won, roughly 20 out of the 32 here. And the other 12 I bought from somebody who was unloading their Gazelles. Whatever. Like, those are the types of things that some people may or may not find interest in this series. But with a few hundred bins of Frisbees, it could be an enlightening series, or it could bore you to death. But someday it'll happen.
I'm fine if it bores people to death.
Hannah Leatherman, Leopard 3's Glow Champion. Yeah, again, maybe, because I probably bought 3 of them, right? Like, that's such a great specific example. I may go into a bin, and it's like, oh, here's 5 Steve Brinster T-Birds, 3 Hannah Leatherman. I thought she had like the Wraith or something, or whatever it was that year, or Leopard 3s. And I went to the Inn of a Pro Shop that year, and I was like, I don't know if these are going to be entirely popular, so let me just buy 3 of each of these. Bought them with the intent to sell 1 or 2, never got around to selling them. They went in a bin. And like, oh, here's some Steve Brinster Splatter Destroyers. Okay, I've got 15 of those. Or David Wiggins commemorative record-breaking bosses. Oh, there's 3 of those in a bin. Like, they all get thrown into a bin, and then one day you pull them out, and you're like, oh, this looks like it was the year 2017 or 2012.
That would be a fun game. I pull out like a random disc or 2, and you have to guess what year that bin was put together.
Yeah, and nothing for nothing, I have semi-intentionally not been too organized for all these years, because I love the idea of that mixture of, oh, here's, and I don't try to mix like decades. I still to this day won't try to go put like some 2022 destroyers along with some 1998 rocks. I wouldn't intentionally try to like put the same disc in a bin there. You're going to be within a 1 or 2 year time frame roughly, and I'd like to keep it, but that's about as organized as I like to keep it. So yeah, it could happen. Kids, Jim says, the kids are up and haven't had enough Imperial Stout. Must be the poison ivy. You'll have a great night, and hopefully catch you next week. Well, I will have another triple mash for you, Jim.
Good Lord. Another cup, I hope.
Oh, no, definitely not another bottle of triple mash. Ryan LF is the best disc no one knows about. What mold was that? Was that a Viper? My friend is a hoarding coach. It is mostly trauma counseling. D-line FD. I'll also say this. Last point maybe on my collection. I'm far more likely to have or have hoarded something I could have conceivably thrown and or thought for sure would be valuable at some point. And, when we'll take example, the Wahoo by Innova didn't take off and it wasn't popular, like literally from day one out of the gate. When stock Wahoos came out, I didn't invest in them, and I didn't go buy another 50 of those. I may have 23 of the 25 Protostar stamped Wahoos all in a bin, or mixing up in 2 different bins. I didn't then go out and buy the R Pro Wahoo or the or any of the other variations after that because it wasn't popular. I did. But what I did do is when the Destroyer came out, which no one knew would be that popular, I just so happened to have sat on 20-ish of the Protostar stamps, which are $100 to $300 a piece right now. So there's a roll of the dice. You don't know what's going to be super popular. I also have, all these Protostar stamped Star Colts or studs. Holly Finley might buy those someday from me.
That's about it.
But that's about it, right? So you take the good with the bad. You never have any idea as to for sure how popular something's going to be. D-line FDs, though, I don't think I've even bought one of those, to be honest with you. I don't even think I ordered them, not thinking they would be popular. Anyway, Terry has 3-time or 4-time JKs. Yeah, see, I putted, and there's a great example. I putted with KC AVRs, and the JKs were too soft for me, so I didn't stockpile on them. Like, I have 100 times more KC AVRs with or without the intention of ever throwing them than I ever did of the JKs, simply because I didn't throw or like how the JKs felt similar to the Yetis. I've got some, but not nearly as many. So, all right.
Tim says, I'll help. What does Terry have in his?
Yeah, exactly. Tim says, when I retire, I'll help you film it. What I want to talk about quickly is, Jeff talked largely about planning for next year. I will just quickly say, I know I threw out Albert Tom and Kristin Silver, all that other stuff. There's a lot of planning going on for Southeast Asia right now. Chiang Mai, Samui, Cambodia has already set some dates. I think Vietnam is hopefully working on some stuff. I'm not sure about Malaysia. I haven't checked in with them lately. But just so you know, like that entire Southeast Asia swing, late January, February, so on and so forth, that time frame that you've seen in the last few years, very much in play. So if you have questions, reach out to me personally or head over to the Thailand Disc Golf page. There's a ton of information posted there on Facebook. But planning for those events is 100% in the conversation right now as well. So yeah. All right. Johnny, real quick before, I guess we'll save a giveaway for next week. I brought some discs along. Hopefully I can have them signed. But I will say this, 80% of the Patreon discs were dropped off yesterday.
Nice.
The other 10, 15%, 20%-ish were either things I'm double checking the addresses on and or international. I've said it before, and a bunch of people have replied.
Do they all come with a side of poison ivy?
Yes. I've rubbed every disc on my leg. I signed it and then rubbed it on my leg. And all the international, literally every one of you via Patreon that are international supporters of ours, I sent an email. Hopefully you got it. I said, hey, just double check that I have your right address or send it to me. We have no problem sending you, even if you gave us $33 on the year and it costs us $28 to send you the disc, we don't care.
It's fine.
But what we don't want to happen is to spend the $28 to send you the disc just to have it returned because I truly didn't have your right address. So that's why I sent every single international Patreon supporter an email saying, hey, for you, we really want to double check your address. Most of you have gotten back to me, and that means we'll be able to get those out next week before I head to Mexico. So thank you to all of you that got back to me because they're on their way. And some of you might have even received them yesterday. Yeah. A few of you may have even received them if you're close enough. So post them, tag us, whatever. Thank you to Tim. Again, thank you to Tim for the design on this year. Tim thought I looked more overweight than I am, but it did. No, maybe not. Maybe it was all to scale.
I think you're too tall.
Johnny, any thoughts before we cut loose?
No, we can just cut this loose, Terry. We will all get a chance to watch Worlds for the next 4 days and kind of keep an eye on the players, see if any aces happen, see if those top guys can.
That's your top concern, is if aces happen?
Well, see if the top guys and men and women stay up there, and to see if Kristin Tattar averages 110 or 1,010, if she would have won.
Wow. Shit, did you take notes tonight? You're on it.
No, but that's just what I remember.
Look at you
talking about. I'm sure I've missed something or two.
At least. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited. How can you not? It's Worlds Week. Next week I go to Mexico. Yeah, right after the podcast I go to Mexico. So I'm here for it. Bring my poison ivy down there. They'll love it. Thank you to Jeff Spring for joining us in the regular show. Thank you. If you're still here, somehow it seems like it's been an extra long show. It has, and a lot of extra rambling. But thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if we'll have any kind of nightly recap, whether it's with me and Johnny or if it's solo on my page. I'm not intending to, but Triple Mash says other ways sometimes. You know, some old bust head caramel macchiato stout may say otherwise. Some more Biggie s'mores, more Triple Mash. I'm just here to support Virginia and their economy. That's what I'm here for.
Virginia's for lovers.
We'll find out. For Johnny V, I'm the Disc Golf Guy. That's Smashbox TV after show number 520. Thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the hell or the heck out of Worlds Week. I know I will. Johnny will from afar. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.